Chapter 1095. The phoenix head incense burner in the main hall was emitting wisps of faint and elegant fragrance. It was refreshing and soothing, making people feel relaxed both physically and mentally. The Empress felt that her whole body was tense and her heart seemed to have fallen into an ice cellar. There were faint sweat stains on her back, and her hands, which were placed on both sides of her skirt, were also wet. "Your Majesty," the Empress said sadly, with her eyes turning red and her voice choked with sobs. "Your Majesty, I have been married to you for so many years. I know that I will never interfere with what I shouldn't do. I have never intervened in this matter at that time. Later, you dealt with the people yourself. Now, why do you suspect me? What happened at that time? What happened at that time?" The Empress looked very painful and slowly pressed one hand on her chest. If I really wanted to deal with Prince Qin, why did I have to do this to Princess Qin?" Speaking of this, the Empress smiled sadly. "Isn't there something else? This is what His Majesty personally told this concubine, something that only this concubine knows." Her voice dimmed and she was almost talking to herself, but the Emperor heard it clearly. His gloomy face showed a bit of emotion. "Your Majesty, when this concubine married you, you were only a prince. During the reign of the late Emperor, this concubine was dragged into the struggle in the inner palace and almost lost her life. At that time, it was also Prince who helped this concubine prove my innocence. At that time, this concubine followed behind you wholeheartedly. Even though you didn't give this concubine much space in your heart, this concubine has always remembered this. But now that you are accusing this concubine like this concubine cannot admit it. I was not present at that time when it happened in the palace. Only those who were present could know about it, right? Your Majesty didn't ask those who were present but blamed me. I'm wronged. It is also possible for those who were not present. Not only me, but also concubine Ming and Prince Cheng. When the late Emperor had an accident, only the Emperor entered the palace. Later, the Emperor entered the palace together with his wife and concubines. When it was a mess, anyone could interfere. The change of the dynasty was suddenly completed within a few days, and it was not because of the late Emperor's own son ascending to the throne. The ministers all had their own disputes. The matters of the previous dynasty had not yet been settled, let alone the matters of the harem. At that time, the back palace was also in a mess. If someone secretly attacked a few palace servants who were present at that time, it was not difficult. Not only did the Empress have this ability, but all the who entered the palace at that time had this ability. When it was in a mess, who knew who did it? The Emperor was silent. Of course, he understood what the Empress said. When he thought about it, it did make sense. Previously, he just thought that the Empress was the most likely one. Now, after thinking about it carefully, he found that both of them were possible. The like concubine Da and concubine Ming followed him to the palace from the hidden mansion. There were many of them. As for Prince Cheng, he also specially came to the palace at that time to accompany Empress Dowager who had lost her eldest son. Your Majesty, if it hadn't been chaotic at that time, how could you not have found that Commandery Prince Qing's mother was pregnant? How could you have let her take the prince to the Yuhui nunnery? When the Empress saw the Emperor's face, she knew that her words had an effect. She looked more and more pitiful. After the Emperor's death, only those who had not given birth to a child would be sent to the Yuhui nunnery to cultivate in seclusion. Those who had given birth to a child would be kept. When they were sent to the Yuhui nunnery, they would usually be sent to the Yuhui nunnery by Imperial physicians. Only when they were sent to the Yuhui nunnery would they be sent to the Yuhui nunnery to see if there was anything wrong with them. However, the situation at that time was too sudden and the palace was in a mess. Therefore, the pregnant hid the child in her belly and entered the Yuhui nunnery together. The Empress shed 2 lines of tears, but she did not reach out to wipe them. Instead, she let the tears slowly slide down her beautiful cheeks. Your Majesty, if you don't believe me, you can depose me. I'm willing to take all the blame. As for Prince Zhou, I don't think you will suspect him, who was just born at that time. Her words were extremely pitiful. Tears rolled down her cheeks one by one. After saying this, she choked with sobs and could not speak. Hearing her pitiful words, the Emperor's face eased a little, but he was still angry. You are the master of the imperial harem and also the empress. You can't be ignorant of so many things, can you? Your Majesty, I also want to know a lot of things. I also want to be the master of the imperial harem so that you can deal with the affairs of the previous dynasty wholeheartedly, but there are some things that I can't meddle in. Something happened to the Empress Dowager that day. I want to ask Princess Chin to come and ask her about it. I have to find another reason, for fear that others will misunderstand Princess Chin. The Empress explained aggrievedly. As for the matter of summoning Xiao Wanru into the imperial palace that day, she spoke frankly and did not use other words to prevaricate. That kind of reason could only fool others, but it could not convince the emperor. With the emperor's temperament, it was best to speak frankly at this time. Your Majesty, there are so many things in the imperial harem. There are many things that you don't allow me to meddle in, so I won't meddle in. It's the same for the Empress Dowager and concubine Lan. I never dare to disobey your Majesty's orders. But sometimes I have to maintain the peace of the imperial harem, so I have to inquire about it from others. But isn't this my duty? Your Majesty, what should I do to make you feel at ease? Speaking of this, the Empress burst into tears. The Emperor fell silent and looked at the Empress with deep eyes, as if he wanted to see something from her face. However, seeing that she was aggrieved but tried her best to restrain herself, he sighed deeply in his heart. You really don't know anything? Your Majesty, if you don't believe me, you can summon Princess Chin and ask her to tell me if she said anything to me that day. Your Majesty, everything I did was to maintain the peace of the imperial harem. What else do I know? As for your Majesty's previous accusations, at that time, I was busy gathering the imperial harem and cleaning up the people in the imperial harem of the previous dynasty. I just entered the imperial harem, so how could I have so many people to investigate? Who do you think is most likely to do it at that time? The Emperor's momentum eased a little. Your Majesty, I don't know. I have been in the imperial harem and paid attention to the trivial matters of the imperial harem. Some important matters related to safety have always been your Majesty's responsibility. If your Majesty doesn't know, I really don't know. The Empress wiped her tears and said. The Emperor fell silent. On the one hand, he said that she was aggrieved, and on the other hand, he mentioned the matter of concubine Lan, implying that she had endured such a grievance. How could it be difficult for her to do other things? He wanted to show that she was virtuous and generous and would not harm others. Concubine Lan lived alone in the imperial harem. Although she was grounded, in fact, this grounding was just a way to protect her. She didn't need to wake up at dawn or dusk, see the Empress Dowager, or use herself. Everything was to protect her, just because she was the former emperor. The emperor treated her so specially because she was the former emperor's younger sister. Every time she thought of this, the empress felt as if her whole heart was being bitten. She felt so uncomfortable that she wanted concubine Lan to die. But she didn't dare to. After following the emperor for so long, she had always known that concubine Lan was the woman the emperor loved. However, because of her identity as the former emperor's younger sister, she was destined to be unable to get any high position. Moreover, she might be envied by other women in the imperial harem, so she was grounded. The empress knew that concubine Lan sneaked out from time to time, but she just pretended not to know. She even knew that concubine Lan had always wanted to get in touch with Chu Luchin but was rejected by him. She thought that she was generous enough about concubine Lan. Concubine Lan was fine now. Not only was she protected by the emperor, but she also had her connivance. In this regard, the emperor must be grateful to her. This was also an important reason why she had tolerated concubine Lan for so many years and kept the matter of concubine Lan under wraps. Although she and concubine Lan actually fought in private, at least on the surface, she was a fair and kind empress. Based on this, the emperor would be less suspicious of her. Get up. Have a good rest these days. I still have something to do. The emperor stood up and said with an unclear look. He didn't reprimand the empress, which meant that he believed what the empress said to some extent. Yes, I know. The empress nodded and said with tears in her eyes. The emperor strode away. The empress stood up with the help of the chair. Her eyes became cold, and her back was soaked with cold sweat. At that moment, she clearly knew the emperor's mind. If she had given a wrong answer just now, she was afraid that she would be abolished as the empress. She was just a small Prince Qin, but he cared so much about her. He knew that he treated the former empress differently from the beginning. Now he even wanted to protect the son of the former empress? The son of an unclean woman was just a sick child who was going to die. Did he really want to pass the throne to this bastard? How could she be reconciled? She was the empress and the ruler of the central palace. The former empress had long been dead, and even her bones had been rotten. Why should she compete with her? Even if concubine Lan was the younger sister of the former empress, so what? She was just a shadow of the former empress. As a shadow, she should take the responsibility of a good shadow. Could it be that she wanted to rely on Prince Qin to help her become the Empress Dowager? Your Majesty, Prince Zhou has secretly sent someone in. A nanny came in and reported carefully. Tell him not to act rashly. Do what he should do and don't do anything, the Empress ordered. Prince Zhou is worried about your health, so he specially sent a divine doctor here, the nanny said again. Oh, a divine doctor? What are you doing? Is there a shortage of imperial physicians in the palace? The Empress was stunned for a moment and then reprimanded her. But this person has already come in. The nanny's face twitched. It was not that she didn't want to stop him, but that Prince Zhou sent him here with the news. Nonsense. Why do we need a divine doctor at this time? Send him out of the palace. The Empress was furious and said angrily, Yes, I'll arrange it now. The nanny nodded and was about to leave, but was stopped by the Empress. Let him wait in the side hall with the imperial physicians in the palace. Chapter 1096. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say net there was no pop-up window for free reading. Since she had entered the palace, it would be suspicious to send her out of the palace. It was better to keep her here. On the one hand, it showed Prince Zhou's filial piety, and on the other hand, it showed her calmness. Keeping her with the imperial physician in the palace was the best explanation to the emperor. At this time, no matter what she did, she had to show her calmness, lest it arouse the emperor's suspicion. The empress felt that this was the most difficult time for her, and she did not dare to arouse the slightest suspicion of the emperor. At the moment she was under house arrest, and her power was divided by concubine De and concubine Ming. Outside the palace, her son was also under house arrest, and they could not discuss things together. Everything happened too fast. Not only did Prince Zhou send people, but other people also sent people. It was just a small assassination, but it caused such a big stir in the end. The Empress did not expect it. Assassinations usually kept a low profile. Even if they killed someone, they would escape. How could they use the crossbow in the army in such a big way? Was it an assassination or a forcible killing? For Princess Qin, who was in the boudoir, who was so stupid to use such a big killing weapon? Princess Qin herself did not play a big role, but because she was involved in the Empress Dowager's affairs before, she was involved in the fight for the throne and became a key figure. If she died at this time, it would achieve unexpected results. If someone else was framed, it might become a sharp weapon in their hands. After a little discussion, the Empress and Prince Zhou made up a plan to assassinate Xiao Wanru. Now thinking of it, she was not the only one who had such a plan. At this time, the Empress was also afraid. Fortunately, she had thought of what would happen if she failed and was discovered, and prepared a series of countermeasures. At this time, how could she deal with the sudden situation? It was the best that nothing happened to her and her son, who was also secretly dealing with Xiao Wanru, wanting to kill Xiao Wanru and taking this opportunity to fish in troubled waters. But they pushed the blame to the Empress. After thinking about it, the Empress only thought of concubine De. Only concubine De had the power to compete with her, and only concubine De had many backup plans in the palace. It must be concubine De or Prince Cheng. The Empress did not pay much attention to Prince Cheng in the past. But now she had to suspect Prince Cheng after so many things happened. Not only might know what happened in the past, but also Prince Cheng, who was raised by the Empress Dowager and was favored by the Empress Dowager at that time. He said that he was wholeheartedly seeking Buddha and wholeheartedly wanting to become a monk, but after all the ruckus, he didn't really become a monk. It was just a smokescreen. Everyone knew that she and Concubinda had a big fight here. At present, it seemed that Prince Yu was the most likely to fight with her son. The people who came back that day said that there were several groups of people, not just two families. This meant that there must be a third or fourth party involved. The Empress was just guessing that no black-robed man came back to report, but now she was sure that Prince Qing must have sent someone. No one knew what happened in the Empress Dowager's palace. Xiao Wanru accidentally got involved and became the key. Everyone secretly thought that it had something to do with the fight for the throne. If Xiao Wanru died, Prince Zhou and Prince Yu would definitely be suspected. At this time, it was usually impossible for someone to benefit. The Empress thought about it and found that Prince Qing was the most likely to benefit. Compared with Concubinda, the Empress thought that Prince Qing was the most likely to use military weapons. On the one hand, he would benefit from the fight between the two princes. On the other hand, he had been to the army before, so it was much more convenient for him to get this kind of military crossbow. Chu Luqian was not in the capital city, and Chu Liuxin was still childish. In fact, only Prince Qing could be investigated. Ask Prince Zhou to secretly keep an eye on Prince Qing and send more people. The Empress gritted her teeth and said in a gloomy voice. This time, she must have been set up by Prince Qing. She didn't expect that there was a dangerous tiger like Prince Qing around. The nanny answered and left. At the same time, in Concubinda's palace, Concubinda was also giving similar instructions to others. Even in Concubine Ming's palace, Concubine Ming was also pondering such a question. All the princes had lost power. Who was most likely to benefit? Would it be the same as before? The throne would not be passed on to the princes but to the emperor's younger brother. In this way, Prince Qing was indeed the strongest enemy. Prince Qing was so annoyed that he had a headache. He paced around the study several times without stopping. Originally, he had been hiding in the dark and had planned for so many years. Now he just slowly drew the net and then watched Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou fight for the throne. But now he actually fell into the light. Although the emperor didn't say anything and just grounded him together with Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou equally, it seemed to be fair. There were guards sent by the emperor at the gate of each prince's mansion. But how could it be the same? He was the emperor's younger brother. Originally, there was no possibility for him to succeed to the throne. Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou were the most likely ones. Why was he grounded and locked up equally with them? It meant that he, Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou were also fighting for the throne. Master, what do you think? After pacing around for a few times, Prince Qing sat down, picked up the teacup on the table, drank a few mouthfuls, and then put it down heavily. Jie Yin Master would come to Prince Cheng's mansion from time to time. Everyone knew that Jie Yin Master was Prince Cheng's good friend and was an eminent monk indifferent to fame and wealth. Because of this, it was not surprising that Jie Yin Master appeared in Prince Cheng's mansion. Prince Cheng was also glad that Jie Yin Master was by his side at this time. Your Highness, don't worry. Jie Yin Master was still calm. I'm not worried. How can I not be worried? At this time, whoever shows up will become the public enemy. At this time, I will definitely be discovered by my brother. Prince Cheng was extremely annoyed. He had always been calm, but he couldn't calm down anymore. After so many years of cultivation, it could be regarded as a waste. Your Highness, now you seem to be guilty of the same crime as Prince Zhou and Prince Yu, but in fact, it is not so. The Emperor has not found anything, so it is impossible to really punish you. It is also impossible to really punish Prince Zhou and Prince Yu. If these two are really punished, does the Emperor really intend to pass the throne to Prince Qin or Prince Exin? Jie Yin Master raised his lips sarcastically. In his opinion, these two were very unsuitable. Needless to say, Prince Chen was not the Emperor's biological son. Even his health was poor. How could he continue to be the Emperor? As for Prince Exin, Jie Yin Master thought that he was just a child and could not bear such a big responsibility. The Emperor would definitely consider Prince Zhou and Prince Yu, so these two could not be punished at the same time. It meant that Prince Qing would also be safe. It was impossible not to punish both of his sons, but to punish his younger brother, who had little relationship with him. The emperor also had to convince the ministers. Chu Luchun may also inherit the throne. He is the eldest legitimate son of the former emperor. If he inherits the throne, it is also possible. He will get the support of many old ministers of the former emperor. He is even more justified than Chu Liuzhou. Prince Cheng said. He was not so optimistic. Even if Prince Chen is the most justified one, if the emperor passes the throne to him, he only needs to say one word. Even the things that happened in the past will not be said that the emperor killed the former emperor. But so what? After all, Prince Chen is not the emperor's biological son. It is impossible for the emperor to pass the throne to his nephew instead of his biological son. If Prince Chen really wants to inherit the throne, he will certainly not live long. With his poor health, he will die with a little movement. Jieyan Master said disapprovingly. Prince Cheng became silent and also felt that it was reasonable. But suddenly he was annoyed and stood up. Who is so stupid to use the crossbow in the army to assassinate Princess Chen? Are they afraid that my brother won't know about it? Prince Cheng was speechless. Thinking of this, Prince Cheng felt very aggrieved. He thought about it for a long time, but he could not think of who was so stupid to make such a big noise. Everyone was in trouble and they were all grounded. His brother's words and behavior in the hall that day did not seem to be aimless. It was obvious that he had noticed something. After plotting for so long and fading away for so long, Prince Cheng was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He had been plotting for so long and had disappeared from the public's sight for so long. Master, could it be the people over there? Prince Cheng stood still and looked at Jieyan Master with a gloomy face. Impossible. They would not be willing to make such a big noise. If they annoy your highness, they won't have a good ending. Jieyan Master thought for a while, shook his head and denied it. Those people were even more unwilling to attract the attention of the emperor. Prince Cheng would be fine for the time being if he was noticed, but if those people were destined to be noticed, they would die in the end. The remnants of the previous dynasty just wanted a place to make a living. It was not a big deal and they would not do such a big thing. Since it is not them, who are they? The people who came back said that there are at least 3 groups of people. Chu Luiyue is one group, Chu Liuzhou is another group. Who is the last group? Who is fishing in troubled waters? Is it Chu Liuxin? Prince Cheng said to himself and also felt that it should not be that group of people. Prince Xian doesn't look like it. It is also possible that the people who came back are afraid of being punished by your highness, so they deliberately said more. It was so chaotic at that time, who could see clearly? Jieyan Master felt that it was impossible and shook his head. Since it is impossible, who on earth are those people? The most important thing is which group of people used the crossbow? Who doesn't want to live and dares to provoke my imperial brother? Prince Cheng was so annoyed. He walked around with his hands behind his back, but he really couldn't figure it out. He could only say angrily, "They are so stupid and want to seize the throne." Both Prince Cheng and Chu Luiyue felt the same. Several groups of people who secretly took action guessed each other, but they really couldn't figure out who caused such a big trouble. At this time, the person who really plotted all this was rushing back to the capital city. No one could guess that all this was Chu Luchun taking advantage of the situation. But he didn't expect that Xiao Wanru would stab herself to prove her innocence. Chapter 1097. When Chu Luchun rushed to the capital city overnight, Xiao Wanru welcomed the imperial physician. The imperial physician came in with a female physician. After checking Xiao Wanru's pulse, the female physician came in and changed Xiao Wanru's dressing. After that she left. When great elder princess sat outside with a solemn face. The female physician came forward and bowed to her. "How is Princess Chen's injury?" When great elder princess said coldly with a nervous face. "Great elder princess, Princess Chen needs to take good care of herself," the female physician replied respectfully. "How is she?" When great elder princess asked again. "Princess Chen is seriously injured." The female physician had to say that although she was mentally prepared, she was still shocked when she saw Princess Chen's appearance. Something bad almost happened. Fortunately, it was just a little bit. Thinking of the location of the injury, the female physician still had a lingering fear. The imperial palace was in a state of panic because of Princess Qin. If something really happened to her, no one knew how to clean up the mess in the imperial palace. Even so, everyone in the imperial palace felt insecure and was afraid that they would be found out accidentally. Even an imperial physician in the Imperial Institute of Medicine was implicated and had not returned after being taken away. At this time, everyone was cautious in their words and deeds, for fear that they would get killed accidentally. How is the medicine now? The great elder princess's face was very pale. Everyone knew that she loved this granddaughter whom she had lost and regained, so it was normal for her to look pale. The medicine is very good, the female physician said hurriedly. The great elder princess stopped asking questions and waved her hand to let her go. The female physician carefully retreated to the door and left Prince Chen's mansion with the imperial physician who brought her here. When they returned to the imperial palace, they went to see the emperor first. The female physician naturally told the truth and did not dare to lie. After hearing it, the emperor asked them to leave and then pondered. Princess Chen was really injured, and she was seriously injured. She almost lost her life, so it really couldn't be related to Chu Luchen. Others didn't know Chu Liuchen's feelings for the young Princess Chen, but the emperor was clear about it. It was also because of Princess Chen that Chu Luchen didn't abandon himself to despair and gradually got better. He didn't listen to what the emperor said and let his health get worse and worse. From this point, it could be seen that Chu Luchen had feelings for Xiao Wanru. It was absolutely impossible for Chu Luchen to hurt Xiao Wanru so badly that he almost killed her. Xiao Wanru was more important than Chu Liuchen's own life. From this point of view, the emperor's last doubt about Chu Luchen was dispelled. It couldn't be Chu Luchen. The emperor only knew that it was impossible for Chu Luchen to hurt Xiao Wanru, but he did not expect that Xiao Wanru took the initiative to stab herself with the sword in order to dispel the emperor's suspicion of Chu Luchen. Chu Luchen wouldn't do anything to her, but it didn't mean that she wouldn't. Moreover, she was proficient in medical skills, so she knew which part looked the most dangerous, but in fact, she could easily avoid the most dangerous part. The emperor never expected that Princess Chen, who looked weak, would be so decisive and so cruel to herself. There were many women in the palace who schemed and plotted against each other. There were also many who were cruel and merciless to others. Some were so vicious that it made people's hair stand on end. However, that was only to others. How could they be so decisive and ruthless to themselves? In addition, Xiao Wanru's appearance was the same as Chu Liuchen's, which was originally deceiving. No one had thought that Xiao Wanru stabbed herself with the sword. If they didn't suspect Xiao Wanru, they wouldn't suspect that it was Chu Liuchen's man who used the crossbow. In the next few days, the imperial city and the imperial palace were under martial law. Anyone suspicious was immediately arrested and interrogated. They actually found many suspicious people. The Ministry of Justice sent the interrogation results to the emperor, who was so angry that he slapped the table hard and said, "The remnants of the former dynasty. They are still alive." Your Majesty, this matter has something to do with the remnants of the former dynasty. I heard that some of them lived near Prince Chen's mansion at that time and then disappeared. The minister of the Ministry of Justice reported. He sent people to arrest a lot of people. Most of them were kind, and only a few were very suspicious. However, it was not easy to pry their mouths open. Only one or two of them loosened their mouths and confessed something, but they didn't confess much. They were originally only responsible for a small part of the affairs, so they didn't know much. Search the entire capital city. If there is anyone related to the remnants of the former dynasty, execute their whole families, the emperor said with hatred. The former dynasty had been gone for so many years, but there were still remnants secretly stirring up trouble, and now they even dared to do it in his imperial palace. Your Majesty, I think this matter should be done by the remnants of the former dynasty. The purpose is to provoke your Majesty into not trusting the princes. The Empress Dowager's birthday is coming soon, and the princes should be released first. Prime Minister Wen suggested. Prime Minister Zhang looked at Prime Minister Wen, narrowed his eyes and thought for a while, nodded and seconded. Your Majesty, since Prince Yu and Prince Zhou are not suspicious, let's release them first. We can't keep them locked up on the Empress Dowager's birthday. Your Majesty, I will definitely find out about the remnants of the former dynasty. I will never let these remnants have a chance to stir up trouble again. The minister of the Ministry of Justice promised. The emperor was silent. After a while, he said, "This matter has not been found out yet. Your Majesty, although this matter has not been found out yet, it is certain that it has something to do with the remnants of the former dynasty. The two princes are always locked up like this, which is not good for their reputation. In the future." Prime Minister Zhang paused here. Everyone in the Imperial study knew what he meant. If there was no accident, the future throne would inevitably fall on these two princes. At this time, no matter who was locked up, it would always be a stain on the future emperor. Since they found out about the remnants of the former dynasty, they would put all the blame on the remnants of the former dynasty. At least, it would be an explanation. Prime Minister Wen also agreed, "Your Majesty, it is better to release the two princes first. The day after tomorrow is the Empress Dowager's birthday. If they are released at this time, on the one hand, it is the affection of the royal family. On the other hand, it also shows that the two princes are very innocent. As for other things, you can investigate secretly." There were some words that Prime Minister Zhang was inconvenient to say, but Prime Minister Wen could say it. Prime Minister Zhang's daughter was going to marry Prince Yu as the princess, so that his status was no longer aloof. Prime Minister Wen was different. He had no direct relationship with the two princes, so it was easier for him to speak fairly. Seeing that they all said so, the emperor nodded, "Let's release Prince Yu and Prince Zhou first. But even if they are released, they are not allowed to enter the palace and study more in the mansion." He intended to withdraw the guards at the gate of the two princes' mansions, but he did not intend to let them go outside. He wanted them to be supervised passively and consciously grounded, which looked good in the eyes of outsiders. The two prime ministers nodded and thought it was appropriate to deal with this matter in this way. "Come on, withdraw the guards in front of the Fengyi Palace." The emperor ordered again. Since Prince Zhou was not suspected, the empress could not be supervised all the time. A eunuch answered and left. Xiao Wanru's injury recovered quickly, and she was injured on her left arm. As long as she didn't move her left arm, she could be careful. However, she, who had lost too much blood, looked very pale, without a trace of blood. She leaned on the bed and asked a few maids to take out the table screen she had prepared. The maple leaf painting had been locked up early. This time, the birthday gift she had prepared for the Empress Dowager was this table screen. Yujia looked at the edge of the scarf in her hand, gestured, and turned back to ask, "Your Highness, do you really want to hang such a scarf?" No matter how she looked at it, this scarf was not suitable. The big and long scarf was originally very beautiful, but with this elegant table screen, it was not pleasing to the eye. "Just use this one." Xiao Wanru nodded. She thought about it in the past 2 days and decided to use the scarf mentioned by Nanny Wei. "Your Highness, you said that it was better to use the original inconspicuous one at this time, right? Why do you still use this one? I don't think it is good at first sight." Chu Lu also advised. "I didn't want to stand out before because the situation at that time was not suitable. Now it is different. Even if my table screen is not suitable, the Empress Dowager will not be angry. If I send such a table screen to the Empress Dowager will definitely be suspicious." Xiao Wanru raised her long eyelashes and said with a soft smile. "Why?" Yujie asked in confusion and looked at the long tassel scarf in her hand. "What do you think of such an inharmonious situation?" Xiao Wanru asked with a smile. "I think you did it on purpose, Your Highness." Chu Lu hesitated for a moment and said, "It would be unreasonable if she did not do it on purpose to deliberately make a good table screen like this." "I am still seriously injured now," Xiao Wanru said meaningfully. Yujie rolled her eyes and said, "Your Highness, you are still sick, and the table screen you sent is so inharmonious. The Empress Dowager will definitely suspect that someone did something to it. Even if she didn't say it at that time, she will have an idea." "Your Highness, do you want the Empress Dowager to investigate this matter?" Chu Li's eyes lit up and she felt that she understood. Xiao Wanru shook her head and said, "No." The two maids were stunned. Both Yujie and Chu Lu thought so. If it was not for this reason, why did they make such a scene? Your Highness, you are going back to the capital city soon. Even if you want to investigate this assassination, you can't. The Emperor will not allow you to investigate it, nor will he allow you to intervene in it. At most, he will let you listen to it. However, the matter of this table screen is different. Relatively speaking, there is no political reason. If you insist on intervening in it, the Emperor will definitely allow it. Chu Luchun was going back to the capital city. There was a gentle smile on his lips. Although he did not stay for long, she always inadvertently thought of him and hoped that he would return to the capital city as soon as possible. Thinking that she was going to see him soon, she couldn't help blushing, which appeared on her pale face, which was astonishingly gentle and beautiful. Of course, those who knew that the sword wound was made by herself would not think like this. The two maids thought so. Of course, the princess's gentleness was just an illusion seen by others. No one knew how powerful the princess was. How could she be as weak as ordinary women? Of course, Prince Chen was different. Seeing the smile on Xiao Wanru's face, the two maids couldn't help smiling. His Highness was going back to the capital city, and the princess finally had someone to rely on. In the future, she would not stab them with a sword anymore. That scene almost made the maids faint. After all, no one had expected that the princess would do such a thing at that time, which was not within their expectations. Chapter 1098. The assassination was too serious, and it was impossible for the Emperor to let Chu Luchun intervene. Even if Chu Luchun was not suspected, he would not ask about it. But the matter of the table screen was different. It was obviously a frame-up, and it happened before she was assassinated. Wei Dehai was not simple. Xiao Wanru had a hunch that such a small figure, who looked inconspicuous, was actually locked in by many things. If Chu Luchun investigated such a person, it would seem too fussy, and it would make people feel strange. But if there was a reason for it, it would be another matter. On the day of the Empress Dowager's birthday, the Palace of Benevolent and Peaceful was full of joy early in the morning. There was a big banquet in the main hall. It was still early and no one had come yet. The palace maids were busy, entering the palace from time to time to take something out. Nanny Wei took care of everything and was very busy. When the womenfolk came later, they went to the flower terrace first, and only came to the main hall when the banquet began. The palace gate was opened early, and carriages stopped everywhere. The palace sedan chairs were ready to be parked at the gate of the inner palace. Madams above the 4th level took their misses from the carriages and walked through the long aisle of the palace gate. The older ones got on the palace sedan chairs, and the others chatted on the way to the Empress Dowager's palace of Benevolent and Peaceful. When they met people who were close to each other, they talked and went in together. In previous years, this was also the most relaxed time in the palace. It could be said that today was the most relaxed day in the entire palace. But today was different. The dull atmosphere in the palace seemed to have subsided a lot, but in fact, it was not. Although the Empress was released to accompany the Empress Dowager, everyone could see that this matter was not over. In previous years, Prince Zhou and Prince Yu entered the palace early to accompany the Empress Dowager. At this time this year, several princes were still outside and were detained by the Emperor. In a while, the Emperor would bring the ministers and princes in to visit the Empress Dowager, and then the banquet would finally begin. In a garden outside the Palace of Benevolent and Peaceful, there was a tall flower terrace. Many rare flowers surrounded the high platform, and the flowers were colorful. Even the air was with a faint fragrance of flowers, which was very pleasant. The weather was very good. When it was neither hot nor cold, the misses were dressed very brightly. It was an opportunity for those who failed in the consort selection or did not participate in it. At that time, several princes chose consorts, and only a few consorts were chosen. Moreover, Prince Exine didn't even choose a consort. Today, Consort Ming was here, and it might be an opportunity. Something happened to Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, and many people targeted Prince Exine, who had never been noticed before. At least, Prince Exine was the Emperor's son. The position of the Crown Prince was the most unpredictable thing. Before the truth came to light, it was possible for anyone. Who could say that Prince Exine definitely had no chance? If the throne was not Xian position, it would be prince's son, Xian's son's son. Many people thought so in their hearts. Young madams were ordered by their parents in the mansion, and they all waited with joy. If concubine Ming or Prince Xian took a fancy to them, they might be the future Princess Xian. Of course, there were also some people who had been optimistic about Prince Yu and Prince Zhou. They were interested in the positions of consorts and vice-consorts. In addition, there were also some people who had no intention of pleasing the Empress Dowager. Anyway, the misses sitting in front of the flower terrace were all dressed very well. There were several rows of tables on both sides of the flower terrace. Snacks were placed on the tables, and there were chairs beside the tables for the ladies and misses who came to watch to rest and sit down. Facing the flower terrace, there were several gauze tents. The largest one in the middle was naturally the place where the Empress Dowager, the Empress, and several noble consorts stayed. The one on the right, which was much smaller, was the resting place for the other ranked concubines in the palace. The tent on the left was reserved for the royal princesses, their daughters-in-law, and their granddaughters. Some sharp-eyed people found that there was a very small tent on the side of the Empress Dowager's big tent. There were also people in the small tent. Some people recognized that they were the people around Ru and Great Elder Princess. No one knew who sent the news that Princess Qin, who was injured, had also come and was resting in that tent. It was said that this was the first time that Princess Qin came to celebrate the Empress Dowager's birthday. She came here with her injury and would go back to rest after presenting the congratulatory gifts. She would not attend the banquet. Everyone knew that Princess Qin was injured. It was said that something serious almost happened. Unexpectedly, Princess Qin would come. This matter had not been settled yet. The emperor's attitude was unclear. The empress and the three princes were implicated together. Speaking of which, it was all because of this Princess Qin. If something happened to her, it was possible that the blame would be shifted to someone else. There were all kinds of opinions. Zhang Qilan couldn't sit still beside Prime Minister Zhang's wife. She put her head close to Luo Xiaowan's ear and said, "Let's go and see Princess Qin, okay?" Luo Xiaowan had wanted to go for a long time, but the mansion didn't let her. It said that no one was allowed to visit Prince Qin's mansion at the moment. Ru, Great Elder Princess, was guarding Prince Qin's mansion and wanted Princess Qin to have a good rest. Hearing Zhang Qilan's words, she also nodded. The two of them went to the most inconspicuous small tent together. When they arrived at the entrance of the tent, they saw Nanny Gao guarding Ru and Great Elder Princess. They hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. Nanny Gao also politely returned the salute. "Nanny Gao, is Princess Qin inside?" Zhang Qilan pointed inside and asked in a low voice. "Princess Qin is in very bad health. Now she can only force herself to come here. Ru and Great Elder Princess asked her to take a rest. Now she is closing her eyes to rest. When the Empress Dowager comes, she will go back after presenting the gifts." Nanny Gao said, "There is a bed inside?" Zhang Qilan asked in surprise. "The Empress Dowager has prepared a bed for our Princess Qin. Otherwise, Princess Qin will not be able to hold on. Princess Qin is filial. Originally, the Empress Dowager told her not to come, but she didn't listen. She will definitely see people presenting gifts to the Empress Dowager." Nanny Gao sighed and said helplessly, "Is Princess Qin seriously injured?" Luo Xiaowan asked eagerly. "The injury is very serious. She almost had an accident. Fortunately, Bodhisattva blessed her." Nanny Gao put her palms together and kept bowing to the air. Her face was full of gratitude. Zhang Qilan took a deep look at Nanny Gao. Seeing her face full of excitement and fear, it seemed that the injury was real. She frowned and said, "Nanny Gao, can we go in and see Princess Qin?" Nanny Gao looked embarrassed. She looked at Zhang Qilan and Luo Xiaowan, as if she couldn't answer. Luo Xiaowan didn't want to make things difficult for Nanny Gao. She pulled Zhang Qilan's hand and said, "Nanny Gao, next time we come to see Princess Qin, you tell her to take good care of herself. Don't leave any bad sequelae." "I will. Thank you, Miss Zhang." "Thank you, Miss Luo." Nanny Gao nodded and put down her hands. Luo Xiaowan nodded. She pulled Zhang Qilan's hand and motioned her to leave. Zhang Qilan was unwilling to leave. She deliberately turned her head to look at the slightly raised tent. Seeing that Nanny Gao's face showed some displeasure, Luo Xiaowan hurriedly pulled Zhang Qilan away. Their behavior just now was too rude. When they were far away from the tent, Zhang Qilan unhappily shook off Luo Xiaowan's hand and said, "Xiaowan, I just want to see if Princess Qin is okay. I just want to take a look from a distance. I won't disturb Princess Qin. And Great Elder Princess won't let me see her. Qilan, Princess Qin is injured now. She is also forcing herself to give gifts to the Empress Dowager. If there is no gift giving, Princess Qin may not even come here," Luo Xiaowan advised. "So what? Since Princess Qin is here, it is rare for us to have such a chance to see her. We should go and see her. Maybe she needs our help," Zhang Qilan said unhappily. "But and Great Elder Princess won't let us go," Luo Xiaowan said. Nanny Gao guarding the door had already explained everything. Princess Qin is so seriously injured. At this time, she doesn't have the strength to talk to us. We can't help her. Instead, we will waste her energy. But I can't rest assured if I can't see Princess Qin," Zhang Qilan said. Then what should we do?" Luo Xiaowan looked around and said helplessly. "How about we secretly go and see her?" Zhang Qilan rolled her eyes and laughed. She pointed to the back of the tent. "We will go there. There is no one behind." Luo Xiaowan looked at the position and said helplessly. "We will just ask Princess Qin a few words through the tent. It's okay to ask her how she is. We don't really want to do anything. We can only rest assured if we ask clearly," Zhang Qilan said. What she said was indeed reasonable. Although Luo Xiaowan was timid, she thought it would not be a big deal to say a few words through the tent. She nodded, but then shook her head and said, "No, and Great Elder Princess is guarding there. It's useless for us to go there. We will be discovered." "What are you worried about? And Great Elder Princess will definitely go to meet other princesses in a while. Princess Qin is not feeling well. She can't wait all the time. She doesn't want to disturb Princess Qin's rest." Zhang Qilan pointed to the tent prepared for the princesses and said proudly. Luo Xiaowan agreed helplessly. The two of them did not return to their seats. They just waited there. After a while, they saw and Great Elder Princess come out, but Nanny Gao was still guarding at the door. Obviously, she was afraid that someone would disturb Xiao Wanru's rest. After and Great Elder Princess left, the two of them looked at each other and turned to the back of the tent. As expected, there was no one in the backlit place. It was a quiet and good place. The two of them walked to the back of the tent hand in hand without a servant girl. When they arrived at the small tent, the two of them became more and more gentle. It was not winter, so the tent was not tight. There were actually voices coming from inside. For fear of being discovered by others inside, the two of them were very careful. Suddenly, Zhang Qilan stopped and pulled Luo Xiaowan hard. Luo Xiaowan was pulled heavily to the right. If she had not reacted quickly, she would have almost fallen. "Qilan." Luo Xiaowan was about to speak, but she saw Zhang Qilan nervously put her finger in front of her mouth and made a gesture to stop her from speaking. She immediately lightened her footsteps. Chapter 1099. The two of them tiptoed over and stood outside the small tent. "Your Highness, if you don't feel well, you can take a nap first. I'll wake you up later." The sound insulation of the tent was not good. They heard Yu Jie's voice coming from inside. "No, I'm fine." Xiao Wanru's voice was very low. If they didn't listen carefully, they could hardly hear it. "Your Highness, in fact, you can ask Great Elder Princess to present a gift for you." Yu Jie hesitated for a moment and said. Xiao Wanru leaned against the couch, covered with a large cloak. The clothes she had chosen before were just right. Although the color was plain, the embroidery pattern outlined by golden threads on it added a bit of nobility, which was in line with her identity as Princess Qin. Her jet black hair was tied up, and a simple hairpin was inserted into it. There wasn't a trace of makeup on her plain little face, but she was still extremely beautiful. It was just that her pale complexion and pale lips made her look extremely weak. "I don't want to bother you, Grandma. Since I can still get up, I have to come here by myself. It's also my filial piety." Xiao Wanru replied softly and looked at the tent. Her tent was set up temporarily. The Empress Dowager didn't intend to let her come here and asked her to have a good rest at home. Xiao Wanru insisted on coming, so the Imperial Palace came up with such a temporary idea to set up such a tent for her. They decided that she could rest here and go back when she was tired. The tent was set up temporarily. The current weather was neither hot nor cold, so the material of the tent was relatively thin. What was more coincidental was that the tent was facing the east. The sun had risen, and two figures could be seen through the tent. The figures of two women were standing beside the tent. Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on the shadow of the tent, and Yu Jie also saw it. After being stunned for a moment, she wanted to walk over, but Xiao Wanru gently waved at her. Yu Jie immediately understood. When she was about to speak, she suddenly saw Chu Lu, who was guarding outside the tent, come in and report, "Your Highness, the Empress is here to see you." As she said, she stepped aside, and the Empress came in with two palace maids. Xiao Wanru put her hands on the edge of the couch and was about to get up. The Emperor reached out to stop her with a smile and said, "Don't get up. Why do you get up when you are so seriously injured?" "Greetings, Your Highness." Xiao Wanru turned sideways on the bed and bowed her head to salute. "I was injured, so I didn't salute in time. Please forgive me, Empress." "Child, you're so seriously injured. How can you not get up? You coming here today is the greatest show of filial piety to the Empress Dowager. Previously, the Empress Dowager told me that you might be very bored in the mansion. Now that you came here by yourself, it's just right. I'm worried about you, so I specially came to see you." "Don't get up." The Empress walked to the bed and looked at Xiao Wanru's face with a kind look. "What did the Imperial physician say?" "The Imperial physician said that I should take good care of my arm. If I don't take good care of it, it will be useless." Xiao Wanru lowered her head and said with a bitter smile, "If a young girl at the perfect age lost an arm at this time, many people would not be able to bear it." The Imperial physician didn't say for sure. He just said that if you take good care of it, there will still be a chance. "I heard that Prince Chen has a miracle-working doctor with excellent medical skills. It will be fine to let him treat you." The Empress comforted her. "Dr. Qi is not in the capital city. He went out with Prince Chen. I'm afraid that Prince Chen will be in a bad condition on the way." Xiao Wanru forced a smile and said, It could be seen that she was reluctant. "In fact, it doesn't have to be so troublesome. Prince Zhou sent a good doctor to the Imperial Palace before, saying that he would help me take care of my body. It happens that I'm not seriously injured, so I brought him here to treat Your Highness." The Empress said with a smile. A man in the Imperial physician's costume came in with a medicine box on his back. After entering the door, he bowed to Xiao Wanru first. Was he worried that she was pretending? Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. With a flash of her eyes, she looked at the Imperial physician who came over and showed a knowing smile at the corner of her mouth. It was a familiar person, Dr. Chiu. Didn't she hear that he had returned to his hometown? Feel Princess Chen's pulse and see how her injury is. See if there are any medicinal materials that she needs. I will do my best to find all the good medicines for her." The Empress ordered. Dr. Chiu answered and stepped forward. Yu Jie took the medical pillow taken out by Dr. Chiu, put Xiao Wanru's hand on it, took a handkerchief to pad her wrist, and then stepped aside. It became quiet in the tent, and everyone's attention fell on First Madame Chiu. After a while, Dr. Chiu put down his hand and looked at Xiao Wanru's face. Xiao Wanru's face was pale, which showed that she was seriously injured. Dr. Chiu had seen 5th Miss Xiao before. At that time, 5th Miss Xiao's face was bright and vivid, but now she only looked fragile and pale. "Dr. Chiu, how is she?" the Empress asked. This was the doctor sent by her son. The Empress trusted Dr. Chiu very much. The Imperial physicians in the Imperial Palace were all very tactful. Even if they knew something, they would not say it. The reason why they brought Dr. Chiu here was to prove whether Xiao Wanru was really injured or not. The Empress always felt that there was something fishy about it. Princess Jin is seriously injured. She really needs to take good care of herself. Otherwise, she will be ill for a long time. Dr. Chiu said bluntly. How could it be true? The Empress frowned. It was too different from what she had expected, so she hesitated for a moment. Your Highness. Xiao Wanru raised her watery eyes and looked at the Empress. Princess Chen, do you need any special medicinal materials? The Empress was awakened, coughed awkwardly and asked. Thank you, Your Highness. Prince Chen's mansion has many medicinal materials you need, Xiao Wanru said. There were many medicinal materials in Prince Chen's mansion, which were even more than those in the Imperial Palace. Because of Chu Liuchen's health, the Imperial Palace would reward him from time to time, so there was no shortage of medicinal materials. That's good. If there's anything missing, just tell me. Take good care of yourself. Prince Chen is not in the capital city, and there's no official master in your mansion. You should be more careful. Seeing that she couldn't find anything, the Empress said a few more polite words and then left with her people. Your Highness, did the Empress come to see if you are really injured or not? After the Empress left, Chu Lu said angrily. Maybe the Empress thought that I wouldn't be so seriously injured. Xiao Wanru said in a low voice. That night, the princess narrowly escaped death and almost lost her life. If we hadn't been at the window, those arrows would have hit us. When Yu Jie mentioned these things, her heart was palpitating and she shuddered. Chu Li's voice also began to tremble. She was also unwilling to mention what had happened yesterday. How could a girl in the boudoir have experienced that day? Your Highness, the guards in the mansion will strengthen the patrol in the future. The chief steward said that the Emperor has also sent more guards to our mansion. He will definitely not let such things happen in our mansion again. Your Highness, the Emperor will definitely find out who wants to hurt you. The man in black was so ruthless that he obviously wanted to kill you. Yu Jie gritted her teeth and said angrily, I only hate that I don't know martial arts. Otherwise, I will definitely find out who wants to hurt you one day. Is Princess Chen here? While the master and servants were talking, another voice came from outside the tent. The voice was so sharp that it was the unique voice of a eunuch in the Imperial Palace. Yu Jie hurriedly went out and soon came in with a group of people. Xiao Wanru actually knew the two people in the front. One was Concubine Da in the Imperial Palace, and the other was Prince Yu, Chu Luwe. It was reasonable for Concubine Da to come, but it was a little impolite for Prince Yu to come in so suddenly. Xiao Wanru sat up with Chu Li's hand, and then struggled to stand up and salute, but was also stopped by Concubine Da. Princess Chen, you don't have to be so polite. I just come to see you. I heard that you were seriously injured before, so I originally wanted to come and see you, but it was inconvenient. Concubine Da's smile was more sincere than that of the Empress. She looked kind and gentle, which made people feel good about her. A woman who could give birth to the eldest son of the Emperor was really not simple. Thank you, Concubine Da. I'm fine, Xiao Wanru said. Now that Prince Yu was here, it was inconvenient for her to lie down again. It's good that you're fine. The Emperor will definitely find out what happened that night and will never let Princess Chen suffer so much in vain. Concubine Da comforted her. Her eyes fell on her arm and then looked at her face. It seemed that she was really injured. The difference between her face and Xiao Wanru's before could be seen at a glance. Chu Luwe didn't say anything. He just stood beside Concubine Da. In the company of Concubine Da, it seemed that he was accompanying his mother to take such a casual trip. However, his eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face, examining her expression to see if she had put on any powder to cover up her face. It took him a long time to come to the conclusion that Princess Chen was really injured. Concubine Da also comforted Xiao Wanru with a few words, and then was about to leave. When Chu Liwe left, he suddenly said in a deep voice, Third brother is not in the capital city. If it's inconvenient for Princess Chen to tell the Imperial Palace, you can ask Prince Yu's mansion for help. Thank you, Prince Yu. Xiao Wanru thanked him in a low voice. After Concubine Da and Prince Yu left, the tent became quiet again. Chu Li held Xiao Wanru's hand and let her lie down again. After lying down, Xiao Wanru sighed in a low voice and looked at the two shadows reflected in the tent. The shadows shook twice, and the two people outside left. Your Highness, Yu Jie called in a low voice. Xiao Wanru smiled bitterly. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice and she slowly closed her eyes. Tell Nanny Gao that if other concubines come over, tell her that I don't have the strength to entertain guests now. Her injury was not good. If they came to check her one by one, she really couldn't hold on. Yes, I'll inform Nanny Gao right away. Chu Lu nodded and left to tell Nanny Gao, who was guarding outside. Great Elder Princess asked Nanny Gao to stay because she was afraid that someone would disturb Xiao Wanru's rest. Nanny Gao couldn't stop the Empress and concubine Da, but she could stop others. Chapter 1100. In a place outside the tent, Zhang Qilan lowered her head and was speechless for a while. She looked at her toes silently with a sad look. Luo Xiaowan had never seen such a look on her face before. She hurriedly reached out to pull her and asked in a panic, "Qilan, what's wrong with you?" After they left the back of the small tent, they came to this place. They were far away from the tent and could no longer hear the voices in the tent. It was impossible for the tent to hear their voices. "Xiaowan, do you think Prince Yu likes me?" Zhang Qilan pondered for a while and suddenly asked. Luo Xiaowan's face turned red and she subconsciously looked around. When she saw that no one had noticed them, she breathed a sigh of relief. How could a miss from an aristocratic family say such words? However, she and Zhang Qilan had been friends for many years and knew that Zhang Qilan's character was not one to follow the rules. Was it because of what had happened just now that she had doubts in her heart? In Luo Xiaowan's heart, Zhang Qilan was a good friend, but Princess Qin was her benefactor. She didn't want the two of them to have any bad feelings. She calmed down and suppressed the shame in her heart and said, "Qilan, of course Prince Yu likes you. Didn't you say that he often sent you things before? Since you were appointed as Princess Yu, think about it. When Prince Yu went to your mansion, he sent you something. As long as you have something, Prince Yu will appear as soon as possible. Why did he come to see Princess Qin? Moreover, Princess Qin is still lying in bed at this time. It's really inconvenient for her to see an outsider. Although he is Prince Chen's elder brother, it's also rude for him to see Princess Qin at this time." Zhang Qilan seemed to be talking to Luo Xiaowan, but also seemed to be talking to herself. Her eyes fell on the ground. Those words lingered in her heart. At first, she didn't believe it. She had always thought that these words would not affect her. Now she found that it was not that it didn't affect her. In fact, it had always affected her, and it had been imperceptibly influencing her. Did Chu Luiyue like Xiao Wanru? The reason why he married her was that he couldn't marry Xiao Wanru, so he had to settle for the second best. Even so, Chu Luiyue still had Xiao Wanru in his heart. So when he heard that Xiao Wanru was injured, he specially asked Concubine Da to accompany Concubine Da to see Xiao Wanru's injury. Was he so obsessed with Xiao Wanru? If that was the case, then what was he? Is it a substitute? Although Zhang Qilan was lively, she was also a proud person. How could she be willing to be a substitute for someone else? What's more, it was Xiao Wanru, her good friend. Why didn't Xiao Wanru mention the relationship between her and Chu Luiyue? Weren't they friends? Could it be that she would rather keep in touch with Chu Luiyue behind his back at this time? She was the future Princess Yu and the one who married Prince Yu. Why did Xiao Wanru still cling to Prince Yu? Didn't she have Prince Qin now? Why did she do this? Was she worthy of her? Luo Xiaowan was startled and hurriedly said, "Prince Yu went in with Concubine Da. He didn't want to go in to see. If Concubine Da wanted to go in, what could he say? Don't think too much. You saw that in the end, Prince Yu only said one sentence and didn't say anything else." Looking at Zhang Qilan's gloomy look, Luo Xiaowan panicked. He didn't say much, but only said the most powerful sentence. He asked her to look for him if she had anything. Why did she look for him? Who is he? He is just Prince Chen's cousin. When Prince Chen is not here, he should avoid arousing suspicion instead of taking the initiative to reach out to Princess Chen. The Empress also came, but Prince Zhou didn't come. Why did Prince Yu come? Zhang Qilan's eyes turned red and she choked with sobs. The Empress went there, but Prince Zhou didn't come. Concubine Da went there, but Prince Yu came. This originally represented a problem. It was not that she thought too much, but there was definitely a problem. Qilan, it's definitely not what you think. Prince Yu must have other reasons. Luo Xiaowan's heart tightened and hurriedly advised. She was weak, But it didn't mean that she wasn't smart, especially in this kind of position where the onlookers could see clearly. I'm tired. I want to go back and rest. Zhang Qilan shook her head and turned to go back. Qilan. Luo Xiaowan still wanted to persuade her, but she saw that she left without looking back. She could only follow with a bitter smile. She didn't want to have a gap between the two of them. They were good friends before, but why was it like this now? What Prince Yu did was indeed wrong. At this time, in order to avoid arousing suspicion, he shouldn't have gone to see Princess Qin. Inexplicably, she was a little annoyed with Prince Yu. This matter was indeed Prince Yu's fault. Just now, she also heard clearly that Princess Qin had nothing to do with this matter. Zhang Qilan returned to her seat and sat down heavily. Her face was a little ugly. Prime Minister Zhang's wife, who was talking to the lady next to her, noticed her abnormality and asked softly, "What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable?" "Mother, I'm fine. I just have a headache." Zhang Qilan reached out and touched her head. A lady next to her said with concern, "Is Miss Zhang sick? Although the weather is good recently, it is also the time when the climate changes. It is easy to get sick. This child is a worrisome one. Her body is not bad. She will be fine after a little rest." Mrs. Zhang replied with a smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Zhang. I am actually tired from walking. I will be fine in a while." Zhang Qilan thanked the lady appropriately. Xiao Xiaowan came over and sat beside her. Seeing that her face had returned to normal, she breathed a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that Zhang Qilan would make a fuss regardless of anything. At that time, Prince Yu would lose face, and even Princess Chen would lose face. She reached out and held Zhang Qilan's hand. She felt that her hand was cold and cold. She hurriedly held it carefully and looked at Zhang Qilan comfortingly. Zhang Qilan turned around and smiled at her. Her face was indeed much better than before. She leaned over and whispered to Xiao Xiaowan, "I was wrong just now. Don't tell Princess Qin. She will laugh at me." "Don't worry, I won't say it. This matter is indeed—" "No, I will ask Princess Qin later." Luo Xiaowan straightened her chest and said. Seeing that Zhang Qilan had let go of the knot in her heart, she was happier than anyone else. How could she tell Princess Qin something that had not been confirmed? It would damage the friendship between them. Everyone had their own emotions. The most important thing was that Prince Yu was not good. After thinking for a while, she suddenly remembered a rumor. Luo Xiaowan hesitated for a moment, but still whispered in Zhang Qilan's ear. "In fact, at the very beginning, I heard that the first miss of Marquis Xing's mansion is the one." For fear that someone would hear it, she deliberately said it vaguely, knowing that Zhang Qilan could understand. The first miss of Marquis Xing's mansion, Xiao Yanru. Luo Xiaowan felt that if Prince Yu had to be involved with someone, it must be Xiao Yanru, not Princess Qin. "Don't talk nonsense." Zhang Qilan reached out and pinched Luo Xiaowan hard. The pain made Luo Xiaowan frown. "I see. It won't have anything to do with him. That's good. It's good that everyone is fine." Seeing that Zhang Qilan really had no grudge, Luo Xiaowan laughed. How good it was. Everyone was the same as before. "Your Highness, who was it just now?" Seeing the two long figures leave, Yu Jie asked carefully, "Was it a palace maid in the palace?" It was a woman's costume, so it could never be a man. Most of the people coming and going were palace maids. Not a palace maid. Xiao Wanru shook her head affirmatively and gave her the characteristics. There are pearls hanging on the hairpin on her head. She is wearing more than one hairpin. The shadow was long and could not be seen clearly. It could be vaguely seen that there were pearls swaying in the hairpin on her head. There was not only one, but a row of pearls. There was more than one hairpin on her hair. It could not be a palace maid. Today, the palace maids were almost all dressed the same, and there was no such gorgeous row of pearls on her hair. Although the other one did not wear a pearl hairpin, it could be seen that there were several tall hairpins in it. It should be a noble lady who entered the palace. Both of them had no maids following them. There was a trace of darkness in her watery eyes. She didn't want them to be the two people she thought of. After her rebirth, the cautiousness engraved in her bones made her very careful all the time. But among the people she knew, there were not many such people. Your Highness. Yu Jie wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Xiao Wanru. She reached out to touch her head and asked, "Is Dr. Chiu still with us?" Just now, the Empress deliberately left Dr. Chiu in Xiao Wanru's place, saying that she was afraid that she would feel uncomfortable later. Whether it was Dr. Chiu brought by the Empress or Prince Yu, both of them wanted to check on her. However, the Empress was more direct. She directly asked Dr. Chiu to take her pulse, while concubine de brought Chu Luiwei here to let him see if she was really injured based on his experience. Fortunately, she was really injured, and Xiao Wanru was not afraid of being seen by them. They were all wondering if it was Prince Chen's mansion who did this. The more seriously she was injured, the less suspicious Chu Luchen was. Dr. Chiu is still here. Your Highness, Dr. Chiu is not a good person. Yu Jie disliked Dr. Chiu very much. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, she immediately answered. How could Yu Jie like a doctor who could kill a living person? A person like Dr. Chiu could no longer be called a doctor. He was more like a killer, the kind of killer who killed people without spilling blood. Xiao Wanru didn't like Dr. Chiu either. With such a person squatting at the entrance of her tent, her entry and exit would be monitored. No one could like him. However, this person was sent by the Empress with such a good reason, so she couldn't refuse him even if she wanted to. Rolling her watery eyes slightly, Xiao Wanru had an idea. She really didn't want Dr. Chiu, so she would ask someone to get rid of him. Dr. Chiu, like Wei Dehai, seemed to be a nobody, but he made Xiao Wanru inexplicably vigilant. Chapter 1101. Chanxian. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. When Infanta Yuan and came over, she didn't see Dr. Chiu. She was still wearing a veil and her face couldn't be seen clearly. Ruiping Great Elder Princess didn't come over. She came to visit Xiao Wanru alone with her maid. Ruiping Great Elder Princess had taken Infanta Yuan and to Bru and Great Elder Princess's mansion from time to time. Seeing her come over, Nanny Gao didn't stop her and stepped aside to let her in. Infanta Yuan and was very proud. She had heard that when several concubines came over together, they were all rejected by Nanny Gao in the name of Ru and Great Elder Princess. After entering the tent and seeing Xiao Wanru, whose face was pale, Infanta Yuan and was very happy. She took 2 steps forward, sat in the chair beside Xiao Wanru, and said with great concern, "How did Prince Chen get so seriously injured? Is it serious?" "I'm fine. Thank you, Infanta Yuan," Xiao Wanru said in a low voice. She hadn't recovered from her injury, so she didn't dare to speak loudly, looking weak. "Since you are not in good health, why did you come here? Empress Dowager asked you to rest, right?" Seeing Xiao Wanru's look, Infanta Yuan and was so happy that her face almost showed. She managed to suppress the joy in her heart and asked seriously. "Imperial grandmother didn't allow me to come, but I think it's better for me to come here. It's the first time to celebrate Imperial grandmother's birthday," Xiao Wanru said softly. Seeing Xiao Wanru's smile, Infanta Yuan and felt depressed. Why didn't she stab Xiao Wanru to death? Why did she let Xiao Wanru live? It was said that Prince Zhou was the first one to marry. After all, he was the legitimate son of the Imperial Palace. Later, Prince Chen somehow got ahead of her. Otherwise, she would be the one to call her Imperial grandmother. She could take advantage of Empress Dowager's birthday to get closer to her. After all, the first granddaughter-in-law could always get the elder's favor. But now Xiao Wanru got ahead of her. "It's not good for you to hold on in such a bad condition," Infanta Yuan then said with more and more concern on her face. "The Empress just came and brought me a doctor surnamed Chiu. He doesn't seem to be from the Imperial Palace. I heard that he was sent to the Imperial Palace by Prince Zhou. He is now in the Fengyi Palace. He is waiting outside the door and asked me to turn to him if I need. His medical skills are excellent," Xiao Wanru said with a smile. "Dr. Chiu?" Princess Yuan and asked in surprise. Infanta Yuan and asked in surprise. "Infanta Yuan and also knows about it?" Xiao Wanru asked curiously. How could she not know that when her face was injured, Prince of Zhou specially asked Dr. Chiu to treat her, and the effect was very good. But later, Dr. Chiu said that he was going to return to his hometown, but it turned out that he was not. He actually went to the Fengyi Palace, causing Infanta Yuan and to have to find another doctor. The Empress was not ill at all. Why did she send Dr. Chiu to the palace? Infanta Yuan was inexplicably annoyed. What did Prince Zhou mean? Was he dissatisfied with her or took a fancy to another girl? How could he be so indifferent to her appearance? How important a girl's appearance was? How could he take Dr. Chiu away from her? Infanta Yuan suppressed the anger in her heart and asked, "Is the Empress not feeling well?" Not feeling well? It can't be. The Empress looks very good, but when I entered the Imperial Palace that day, the Empress asked me to see Xiao Baolin. When I was in the Imperial Palace, the Empress asked me to see Xiao Baolin. She is in poor health and is asking an imperial physician to treat her. Xiao Wanru shook her head in confusion and said, "The Empress is in excellent health." Xiao Yenru? It must be for Xiao Yenru. Infanta Yuan immediately recognized Xiao Yenru. Almost without guessing, she knew that Prince Zhou sent Dr. Chiu to the Imperial Palace for Xiao Yenru. That bitch even flirted with Prince Zhou. Infanta Yuan pulled her handkerchief hard and could no longer suppress the anger in her heart. She stood up abruptly. "I've asked Dr. Chiu to treat my injury before. I wonder if I can ask Dr. Chiu to treat my injury now? It turns out that your face was checked by Dr. Chiu?" Xiao Wanru said in surprise. "Infanta, you'd better ask Dr. Chiu to treat your injury again. I heard that Dr. Chiu has excellent medical skills. Moreover, if you change the doctor, you have to change the dressing. Maybe the medicine of the two doctors will conflict with each other, which is not good for the wound." "Thank you, Princess Jin." Infanta Yuan did not stand on ceremony with Xiao Wanru, only feeling that the anger in her heart rose a little. If Xiao Wanru had mentioned someone else, she might not care so much. But Xiao Yenru was not someone else. She was the granddaughter of Ruiping Great Elder Princess, so how could she really know nothing about the relationship between Xiao Yenru and Prince Zhou? However, Ruiping Great Elder Princess advised her that Xiao Yenru had become the Emperor's treasure and it was impossible for her to have anything to do with Prince Zhou, so she didn't say anything. Now did it mean that Prince Zhou had contacted Xiao Yenru again? One was ill, and the other used the excuse of treating the Empress to get Dr. Chiu into the Imperial Palace for Xiao Yenru. It must be like this. No wonder Dr. Chiu suddenly took him away after treating her injury. He was afraid that she would be suspicious and said that Dr. Chiu had gone back to his hometown. It was really a good idea. Go back to his hometown? What hometown? He came to the Imperial Palace to treat Xiao Yenru's injury. Others didn't know about the dispute between Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou in the Imperial Palace, but Infanta Yuan knew something about it. As the future Princess Zhou, how could she not be angry? Xiao Wanru's words touched the softest part of her heart, and she couldn't control her jealousy. After getting out of the tent, she forced a smile to Nanny Gao, who was guarding by her side, and asked, "Nanny Gao, have you seen Dr. Chiu?" Nanny Gao pointed to the side and said in surprise, "Hey! He was in this position just now. Where did he go now? Where did he go?" He must have seen her hiding. Sure enough, he had a guilty conscience. Infanta Yuan came over angrily with her servants. As expected, she saw Dr. Chiu hiding aside. When she saw Dr. Chiu's shocked look when he saw her, she knew that he was hiding from her. Infanta Yuan couldn't control the evil fire ignited by Xiao Wanru anymore. She took 2 steps forward and reprimanded, "Someone, drag this disrespectful person away and beat him 10 times. She couldn't do anything to Prince Zhou, but she could kill the person instructed by Prince Zhou. She wanted to see how Dr. Chiu would treat Xiao Yenru. As a royal infanta, she certainly didn't need too many reasons to beat a doctor who was not even an imperial physician. Infanta Youth. Dr. Chiu still wanted to argue, but he was dragged away by several eunuchs who followed him. Infanta Yuan was the future Princess Zhou and even the future Empress. Everyone in the Imperial Palace wanted to curry favor with her. Dr. Chiu was beaten inexplicably, but he couldn't find a place to complain. Nai found a young eunuch who looked rather kind-hearted and had him send a message to the Empress's people. Afterwards, he limped back to Feng Yi Palace. In his current state, he could not go and stand guard outside Chen Wangfei's residence. It was just a trivial matter that Infanta Yuan and beat Dr. Chiu. Before it was reported to the Empress, she was stopped by the Empress's servant. The Empress was still accompanying the Empress Dowager, so she was not in the mood to pay attention to such a trivial matter. Moreover, Infanta Yuan and was the Empress's future daughter-in-law. How could she beat a doctor back? The Empress's servant didn't care, and the Empress didn't even get the news. The Empress Dowager came. The Empress accompanied the Empress Dowager to meet some prestigious old madams and old madams. She pretended to be a filial daughter-in-law and sat aside with a smile. What happened before seemed to have nothing to do with her. Although many people knew that the Empress had not been cleared of suspicion, so what? She was still the Empress now. From this point of view, Prince Zhou was still the legitimate son in the palace and was the most likely prince to sit on the throne. Who dared to really offend the Empress? At this time, all the imperial family members were present. Prince Yu, who came to pass a message on behalf of the emperor, also went to the front. The song and dance prepared by the Empress began to be performed on the flower terrace. They had rehearsed this a long time ago. In the morning, the Empress asked people to rehearse the song and dance, and in the afternoon, some young madams went up to perform. The birthday banquet specially prepared by the Emperor for the Empress Dowager was mainly for a whole day. That was to say, after the imperial family members entered the palace, they would stay in the palace for a day. After lunch, they would take a short rest and then continue to come here to watch the young madam's skills. This was the highlight of today. Compared with the singing and dancing of the palace servants, the young madam's singing and dancing were the most interesting and could also set off the dignity of the Empress Dowager. Otherwise, it would be the same as the ordinary old madam's birthday. Some people began to present gifts to the Empress Dowager one after another. In fact, the most dignified way was to present in front of the emperor and his ministers. However, there were some low-key people, or the gifts were not particularly outstanding. Anyway, it would be like this for a while, so they began to present it at this time. If the gifts were not outstanding, there might be more than one. If the Empress Dowager presented the gifts earlier, she could avoid the embarrassment of bumping into the gifts of others. However, it was still early, so everyone presented the gifts very quickly. After a gift was presented, the Empress Dowager and a group of concubines watched it, and then the next one presented. It was also a pleasant thing to watch the performance on the flower terrace while enjoying the gifts. The madams and young madams sitting outside could also talk leisurely. Your Highness, it's time to present the gifts. After Yu Jie got the news, she returned to the small tent. Xiao Wenru was waiting there for the news. Hearing Yu Jie's words, she nodded. This was the best time. She was injured and could not hold on to the banquet for a while. After giving the gifts, she could go back to rest. Because of her injury, even if she did not do well, the Empress Dowager would not say anything. She did not want to waste such a good opportunity. She slightly raised the corners of her mouth to show a calm smile, reached out to put her hand on Chu Li's hand, and said, "Help me up. I want to present the gifts in person." Today, she came to present the gifts, which represented her sincerity. Since she came to present the gifts, of course, she had to do it properly. Chapter 1102. The Empress Dowager was in the big tent in the middle. Some people with high status in the two tents on the side also came over. Some royal princesses and with high status also came over to accompany the Empress Dowager. Everyone accompanied the Empress Dowager and talked with her. From time to time, the Empress Dowager heard some particularly funny words, which made the Empress Dowager laugh. A few gifts had been sent over, and the madam of the sending mansion accompanied them. After she was done, she left. Nanny Gao hurriedly came in from outside and whispered in the Empress Dowager's ear. The Empress Dowager nodded with a smile and said, "Let Princess Qin in." Nanny Gao nodded and left. Some people with sharp ears heard the Empress Dowager's words and winked at those who were familiar with her. Princess Qin actually came to send gifts in person? The assassination of Princess Qin made a big scene. Everyone knew that someone wanted to kill Princess Qin and even used the crossbows in the army. After that, Princess Qin was fine, which made everyone have to sigh that Princess Chen was lucky. In this case, she was still fine. She was really lucky. After Princess Chen was assassinated, no one had seen her. They only said that Princess Chen was in poor health, but she could still get up now. It seemed that her injury was not as serious as imagined. Sure enough, she was in good health. Xiao Wanru came in with Yu Jie's hand. One of her arms was hanging down, and she used her good arm to hold Yu Jie's hand to support her. She walked very slowly, and her face was so pale that she almost fainted. "Go and help Princess Chen," the Empress Dowager ordered. Immediately, another palace maid went over and carefully helped Xiao Wanru, but she did not dare to touch Xiao Wanru's hanging arm. "Imperial grandmother." Xiao Wanru walked to the front of the Empress Dowager, gasping for breath. She didn't walk far, but she felt dizzy and her white and tender forehead was covered with sweat. It was obvious that she couldn't hold on any longer. "You are so seriously injured, but you still have to come here by yourself. Help Princess Chen to sit down," the Empress Dowager said. A eunuch put a chair between the Empress Dowager and Great Elder Princess. Yu Jie and the palace maid helped Xiao Wanru sit down. And Great Elder Princess reached out to hold Xiao Wanru and looked at her face anxiously. When she went to see Xiao Wanru before, Xiao Wanru's face was pale and bloodless. At this time, Xiao Wanru's forehead was covered with sweat. It could be seen that Xiao Wanru had spent a lot of effort to come here. She stretched out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat on Xiao Wanru's face with distress. This child is so seriously injured, but she still insists on coming here to present gifts to Empress Dowager herself. And Great Elder Princess choked with sobs. She gritted her teeth hard to swallow the bitterness in her heart. This was the first time that the Empress Dowager had seen Xiao Wanru after she was injured. At this time, she couldn't help but be stunned. She had asked Nanny Gao to send medicinal materials to Princess Chen several times before, and she only said that Princess Chen was fine and nothing serious. She just needed to take care of her. Now she saw that Princess Chen's condition was not as simple as what Nanny Gao said. She couldn't help frowning and looking at Nanny Gao. There was some displeasure in his eyes. "Grandmother, this is a token of appreciation from His Highness and I. How can we let someone else send it for us?" Xiao Wanru said softly with a smile full of joy. She turned to look at the Empress Dowager and said, "Imperial grandmother, you won't blame me for coming late, will you?" "What does it matter to me? If you can't feel well, go back early and have a rest. Don't worry about anything else. Imperial grandmother is here." Looking at her pale little face, the smile on her face was even a little forced. It could be seen that she worked very hard, and the Empress Dowager couldn't help but feel sorry for her. This child was sincere. At this time, she still insisted on coming here to give gifts in person. For the sake of her filial piety and Chena's kindness, the Empress Dowager had to protect her. "Imperial grandmother, after sending the gifts, I will take my leave and go back first," Xiao Wanru said and nodded to Yu Jie, who was beside her. Yu Jie left and came in with a brocade box after a while. The wide brocade box was placed on the table in the middle, and Yu Jie took out a table screen from it. As soon as the table screen was taken out, many people immediately widened their eyes in surprise. It was not because of the exquisite embroidery on the table screen, but because the scarf under the table screen was so gorgeous and long. It really didn't look good under the table screen, or to put it more clearly, it made people feel that it didn't match and was very dazzling. Nanny Wei was stunned for a moment. She looked at the table screen in astonishment and blinked her eyes almost in disbelief. Wasn't this the one that she had praised as beautiful? Anyone with eyes would be able to see that she wasn't worthy. Could it be that Princess Chen really didn't have eyes? Even if she was blind, were the people around her blind as well? No matter if it was the color, the picture, or the material, it didn't match the elegant table. It was actually sent to the Empress Dowager's face? Nanny Wei was shocked and had an inexplicable bad feeling. What did Princess Chen want to do? The concubines around the Empress Dowager all whispered and stared at Xiao Wanru. Was this the gift that Princess Chen carefully selected and even gave to the Empress Dowager at the expense of her own health? Looking at Xiao Wanru's pale little face, They knew that she was serious and not joking. But this match was too outrageous. The Empress Dowager was also stunned and looked at the table screen in astonishment. Imperial Grandmother, this table screen was embroidered by me, and the picture on it was also painted by me. I wish you happiness as vast as the East Sea and longevity as long as the South Mountain. Xiao Wanru said in a low voice. Everyone could see that she was very weak at this time, but she still had a smile on her face, which made and great elder princess feel nervous. This child was so injured, but she still insisted on giving a gift. How could she be so stubborn? And great elder princess could be said to be the only one who didn't pay attention to the table screen. She had been paying attention to Xiao Wanru nervously, for fear that she could deal with it immediately if Xiao Wanru was in trouble. As for what to give, and great elder princess didn't think it was important. Thank you for the trouble. The Empress Dowager couldn't bear to blame Xiao Wanru at this time. She only felt great pity for Xiao Wanru. She reached out and patted Xiao Wanru's hand gently. Go back and have a rest. Take good care of yourself. When Prince Chen comes back and sees you like this, he will blame me for not taking good care of you. Thank you, Imperial Grandmother. I know, Xiao Wanru said. Xiao Wanru said, looked up at Nanny Wei with gratitude and said, I didn't know what Imperial Grandmother liked at first. Fortunately, Nanny Wei told me that this scarf was good, so I made it according to Imperial Grandmother's preference. As soon as Xiao Wanru said this, Nanny Wei's face changed dramatically and she looked at Xiao Wanru in horror. She didn't expect that Xiao Wanru not only gave this gift, but also explained it to the Empress Dowager in public. If Princess Chen was not injured, she could say whatever she wanted, and she could even ask the Empress Dowager to help Prince Chen choose a concubine or concubine. She could suggest to the Empress Dowager in private that Princess Chen was unworthy of being Princess Chen to give such a discerning gift, which would make the Empress Dowager hate Princess Chen. But she couldn't do it at this time. Princess Chen was so injured that the Empress Dowager felt very sorry for her. What's more, she forced herself to come here to give a gift to the Empress Dowager. No matter how bad her gift was, the Empress Dowager would like it. Even if she slandered the Empress Dowager, who would believe that Princess Chen was not sincere when she came to celebrate the Empress Dowager's birthday with such an injury? Empress Dowager, I didn't say that. Nanny Wei thought so in her heart. Her legs went soft and she knelt down. Did Princess Chen misunderstand what I meant? I made a mistake? Xiao Wanru was a little confused. She shook her body and almost fell down. And great elder princess hurriedly held her and said impatiently, It doesn't matter if you made a mistake. You are so injured. It doesn't matter if you heard it wrong. The Empress Dowager won't blame you. What the hell is going on? The Empress Dowager's face darkened and she looked at Nanny Wei and asked, Empress Dowager, when I went to Princess Chen to deliver the Empress Dowager's message that day, I happened to meet Princess Chen at the edge of the table selection exhibition. This is the one that Princess Chen made at that time. She asked me what I thought. Seeing that Princess Chen was in high spirits, I thought that since Princess Chen was the master and I was a servant, I couldn't spoil Princess Chen's mood, so I said it was not bad. Maybe it made Princess Chen misunderstand me. It's my fault. Please punish me, Empress Dowager. Nanny Wei reacted quickly. The cause and effect flashed in her mind, and she already had an explanation. Anyway, she said so. Could it be that Princess Chen could prove anything else? Xiao Wanru stood up with the help of and First Princess. Her body was on the verge of collapse, which was frightening, for fear that she could not hold it and would faint. Imperial Grandmother, it's my granddaughter-in-law. I made a mistake. If Imperial Grandmother doesn't like it, I can make another one. She didn't defend herself. Because she used so much strength, cold sweat began to appear on her forehead again. Several concubines nearby could see clearly that compared with Nanny Wei's words, her words were almost a confession. However, looking at her situation, thinking about Nanny Wei's words and her calm look at the moment, many people inexplicably felt that Nanny Wei deliberately set up a trap to make Princess Chen lose face. They couldn't help looking at Nanny Wei with vigilance in their eyes. If this matter fell on them, they were afraid that they would also be fooled like Princess Chen. After all, The person who said this was the Empress Dowager's personal nanny, who was the Empress Dowager's confidant. Needless to say, this nanny Wei was up to no good and deliberately hurt Princess Chen. How can I not like what I like? Go back and have a rest first. We'll talk about this later. I'll reward you later. The Empress Dowager said gently, waved her hand, and motioned for Nanny Wei to get up. At the same time, she ordered someone to send Xiao Wanru back. It seemed that Xiao Wanru couldn't hold on any longer. Seeing the Empress Dowager's smiling face, Xiao Wanru was relieved to go back. She first went to the tent on the side to have a rest. She wanted to ask someone to help her get on the soft sedan chair and return to Prince Chen's mansion from the side door when she had enough rest. It seemed that this matter was over, as if Nanny Wei was right, Princess Chen was right, and the Empress Dowager liked this kind of person. The table screen was put away, but Nanny Wei, who was standing behind the Empress Dowager, was sweating on her back. In fact, this matter was not over. Chapter 1103. When Xiao Wanru returned to the small tent, she almost collapsed. It took all her strength to come here step by step. She lay on the bed weakly and closed her eyes. And Great Elder Princess covered her with a soft cloak and then whispered a few words to Yu Jie and Chu Lu. She carefully told them not to go back in a hurry and let Xiao Wanru sleep for a while. She could go back when she was in good spirits. If she was in good spirits, she could come over later to watch the performance in the afternoon, but she didn't have to run around like now. The tents were all in the middle. Even though Xiao Wanru's tent was a little smaller and a little farther back, it was still in the middle. As long as one lifted the curtain outside the tent, one could see the performance on the high flower terrace clearly without going outside. Great Elder Princess, will the princess go to the banquet later? Yu Jie asked. And Great Elder Princess shook her head and said, you don't have to go to the banquet with them. When your princess wakes up, if she doesn't want to go back, tell Nanny Gao to ask for lunch from the Imperial kitchen. She can eat here. After eating, ask someone to clean up. She can rest here and wait for the performance in the afternoon. I'll go back. There was a weak voice coming from the bed. Xiao Wanru felt dizzy. She had managed to hold on just now, but now she really couldn't hold on anymore. She had told Yu Jie that she wanted to watch the performance in the afternoon, but now she was in low spirits. Yes, it's better to go back and rest. This kind of performance can be watched anytime. Health is the most important thing. Ruian Great Elder Princess breathed a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that Xiao Wanru would insist on watching the fun. After all, Xiao Wanru was a young girl, and she might not necessarily leave at this time. It was best for Xiao Wanru to propose it herself. He came over and pulled Xiao Wanru's cloak for her again. He sighed heavily and said, alas, and Great Elder Princess didn't know what to say when Xiao Wanru was injured to this extent but still managed to hold on. Her eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's pale and almost transparent face and she felt a lump in her throat. If it weren't for the child's parents who died early, such a child should still be acting coquettishly in her parents' arms at this time. How could she be so sensible? Even though he was injured to this extent, he still forced himself to come over to congratulate the Empress Dowager. The more one thought about it, the more one's heart ached for such a sensible child. Grandma, I'm fine. Xiao Wanru couldn't open her eyes either, so she could only say in a low voice. It was not that she didn't want to open her eyes, but that she couldn't. Just now at the Empress Dowager's place, she used up all her strength. She didn't even hear the footsteps of Ru and Great Elder Princess leaving and slowly fell asleep. When he woke up again, he reached out and touched his head. It didn't hurt as much anymore, so he opened his eyes. Princess is awake. Yu Jie exclaimed in surprise. Then she saw Lin Mingya appear in her sight. Princess, do you feel uncomfortable? Xiao Wanru shook her head and said, I'm fine. Princess, you've slept for 4 hours. Chu Li's eyes turned red, and she hurried over to check Xiao Wanru's face. Seeing that she was still pale but much better than before, she breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, the two of them became more and more flustered and scared as they waited. They even alarmed the Empress Dowager, who asked the Imperial physician to come over and check on her. The Imperial physician said that she was just seriously injured and fainted, and nothing serious had happened to her. Only then did the two servant girls feel a little relieved, but they were still very worried. At this time, seeing Xiao Wanru wake up, they breathed a sigh of relief. "I've slept for 2 hours?" Xiao Wanru reached out and touched her head, which was still a little dull, and her long eyelashes fluttered a few times. She had thought that she would be fine after a short rest, but she didn't expect that she had slept for 4 hours. Calculating the time, it was time for the banquet to start. She listened carefully and didn't hear any sound as expected. "Have all the people outside gone to the banquet?" Xiao Wanru asked again. "Yes, they have all gone. Great Elder Princess specially came to see you before she left. Later, she said that you were fine, so she left." Yujia said. Chu Lu went to the table where there was a food basket and said, "Princess, it's getting late. Please eat a little. If you are still in good spirits, we will stay and have a look. If you are not in good spirits, we will go back." Great Elder Princess said that there is nothing to see. It's just that the misses want to enter the mansions of the princes. Yujia went over and helped. She pulled the table to the front of Xiao Wanru's bed, and then opened the food basket and took out the dishes one by one. It was quite sumptuous. 8 dishes, 1 soup, and a large bowl of white rice. The big food basket was almost full. The food was still hot, and it seemed that it had been brought here not long ago. Xiao Wanru happened to wake up. It was just right for her to eat at this time, which was neither cold nor hot. Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on a bowl of pork ribs and yam soup in the middle. In fact, there were not many pork ribs, which were just used for seasoning. There were yams in it, but upon closer inspection she found that there were also some mushrooms. The strong fragrance of the meat and mushrooms made her salivate. The eunuch who brought it here said that this soup was specially made by the people in the Imperial kitchen, and it was ordered by the Empress Dowager. There are not only yams and mushrooms, but also some nourishing seasonings, which are very suitable for your current needs. Great Elder Princess also sent someone to tell you that you must drink more and take good care of your health. Seeing that Xiao Wanru's attention was on the bowl of soup, Yujia explained with a smile. It was indeed very fragrant. After tasting it carefully, there was a faint smell of medicine in the fragrance of meat and mushrooms. It was no longer a bowl of ordinary soup, but a medicated diet. Chu Lu poured a bowl for her, and Xiao Wanru took it and took a sip. The soup was fragrant and smooth when it entered her throat, and there was a taste of meat in it, which made it more delicious. The taste of traditional Chinese medicine was also very light, which seemed to be more perfect with the soup. As soon as the soup entered her mouth, Xiao Wanru's face changed slightly. "What's wrong, Your Highness?" Yujia, who had been paying attention to Xiao Wanru's expression, asked hurriedly when she saw her frown. Xiao Wanru put down the bowl, wiped the corners of her mouth with a handkerchief, and then asked, "Who sent this soup?" It was said that it was sent by the eunuch of the Imperial kitchen, and it was specially made by the Empress Dowager. Great Elder Princess also sent someone to ask you to drink more. "Your Highness, what's wrong?" Yujia said. After staying with Xiao Wanru for a long time, Yujia had become meticulous. The soup was sent from the Imperial Palace by a eunuch whom she had never seen before. Of course, she was wary. However, when Great Elder Princess's servant said so, she immediately believed it. Could there be something wrong with the soup? Yujia's eyes fell on the bowl of soup. Among these dishes, the soup was the most fragrant, and it had a very strong smell of medicine, which was different from the fragrance of other dishes. The eunuch sent it here first, and then my grandma specially asked me to tell you. It seems that she was afraid that we wouldn't believe it? Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows, looked at the soup, and then looked at the other dishes and said, "Put this bowl of soup on another table. Put this bowl of soup on another table. The aroma of the soup will cover the smell of the other dishes." Although Chu Lu and Yujia didn't know why, they obediently moved the big soup bowls away. The fragrance in front of Xiao Wanru immediately became lighter. "Cover it," Xiao Wanru said again. Yujia did as she was told and covered the soup bowl. "Yujia, come over and smell if there is any other smell in the dishes." Xiao Wanru closed her eyes and said in a low voice. Although she had planned to be injured, she had lost so much blood, so it couldn't be fake. Just now, in order to show her sincerity in front of the Empress Dowager, she did walk over step by step and then came back step by step. She had exhausted all her strength. Although she felt much better after sleeping, she still lacked energy and could not do things that required a lot of energy. However, fortunately, there was Yu Jie. In terms of knowledge and familiarity with traditional Chinese medicine, Yu Jie was even better than Xiao Wanru. Yu Jie came over, picked up the other dishes in front of her, and began to identify them one by one. Without the fragrance of the mixture of traditional Chinese medicine and broth in the soup bowl, the smell of these dishes became clear and was no longer covered by the fragrance of the soup. After smelling it, Yu Jie separated 2 of the dishes from these dishes. Later, after hesitating for a moment, she took out the big bowl of rice and put it together with these 2 dishes. After doing all this, Yu Jie knelt down with a plop and said, "Your Highness, I was negligent. Tell me, what is it?" Xiao Wanru was not surprised. She closed her eyes and slightly raised the corners of her mouth, trying not to waste her energy. "There seems to be a smell in these 2 dishes, but it seems not. I can't tell it apart, but after smelling it carefully, it seems to be the smell of the traditional Chinese medicine in the soup just now. I don't know if she was infected by the smell of the traditional Chinese medicine in the soup, but there must be the smell in the rice. This bowl of rice has been drugged. I used to have a sensitive nose, but this time, because Great Elder Princess sent someone to tell me and I was covered by the smell of the soup, I didn't find anything. I almost let the princess." Speaking of this, Yu Jie showed a look of hatred and anger on her face. She almost killed the princess. If the princess hadn't been sober, the princess would probably have lost her life this time. The best thing was that even if she and Chu Le ate the rice, nothing would happen to them. No one knew how the princess died. They thought that she had just forced herself to be energetic and sent a birthday gift before, so she died. No matter how they investigated, they couldn't find out that this matter was related to the rice. Chu Le didn't understand these things. At this time, when she heard Yu Jie's words, her face also changed greatly. She looked at the white rice on the table in horror and asked in astonishment, "Is it poisoned? Who wants to hurt the princess? Didn't the Empress Dowager specially order it to be done? Even the people in the Imperial kitchen were used? No, is the Imperial kitchen the place with the most powerful supervision?" The Imperial kitchen was the most important place in the Imperial palace. The people of the Imperial family had always been afraid that people would poison their food. Therefore, the people in the Imperial kitchen were checked very clearly. Only those who were clean and had not done anything wrong could enter the Imperial kitchen. In addition, the Emperor would send people to check from time to time. The purpose was to ensure that there was no problem with the food. This was also the reason why Chu Lu and Yu Jie didn't have much suspicion. Now it seemed that it was not the case, so how could the 2 servant girls not be shocked? "No, this is not poison," Xiao Wanru, who was lying on the bed, said softly. She slowly opened her watery eyes, which were clear and cold. Chapter 1104. Is it the medicine for activating qi and blood? Xiao Wanru's words sounded like a question, but in fact, it was not just a question, but a very affirmative statement. Yu Jie wiped her tears, nodded hard, and said, "Your Highness, it is for activating qi and blood. If you take it together with the medicated diet, which is excellent for your health, it will cause you to bleed profusely and your wound will crack. It will be impossible to find out the cause even if we want to." "Get up and talk," Xiao Wanru said. "Your Highness." Yu Jie still wanted to say something, but Xiao Wanru waved her hand and said, "Get up first." Chu Lu pulled Yu Jie up. The 2 of them were angry and resentful, and their eyes were red. They thought that they had protected their master well, but they didn't expect that someone almost took advantage of them. If it weren't for their master's sobriety, something serious would have happened. At that time, they couldn't absolve themselves of the guilt even if they died. There should be nothing wrong with the kitchen. The main thing is that there may be something wrong with the person who sent the food here, or it may be someone else, or there may be something else. The food may have been drugged on the way. As for the person sent by my grandma, Someone must have encouraged my grandma to specially send someone here. Of course, it is to increase the credibility of the matter. As for this bowl of soup, the medicated diet is very good, but it played the biggest role. Xiao Wanru analyzed in a low voice. Everything was interlinked. She even guessed that the Empress Dowager had asked someone to send her a bowl of medicated diet. This person also knew the Empress Dowager's character. Now that she was injured, it was necessary to send a bowl of soup, and of course, it would be best to send a medicated diet. Seeing her previous situation, the Empress Dowager would definitely ask the Imperial kitchen to send a bowl of soup. The medicated diet naturally had the smell of Chinese medicine. Although there was also some smell of medicine sprinkled into the rice, it was not obvious among so many dishes and medicine smells. Another point was that the person who drugged the food did not know which dish Xiao Wanru liked to eat. In Xiao Wanru's current situation, she would not eat much. If she didn't eat the food, the person's plot would fail. So the person sprinkled the medicine on the rice. Even if she had no appetite, the two maids would persuade her to eat some. After all, she was recuperating now, so she should eat more. Your Highness, who on earth wants to kill you? Yu Jin gnashed her teeth and said, this person should know that I know medicine. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used the aroma of the soup to cover the smell. He could have just used a normal soup. Xiao Wanru said slowly and closed her watery eyes slightly. This person wants to kill me again. He also knows what happened to me in the Imperial Palace today. Even if he doesn't know it clearly, he must have heard it. If one thought about it carefully, there weren't many people who fulfilled these conditions. Princess, could it be Xiao Baolin? Chulu asked. After the princess married into Prince Chen's mansion, the people she offended the most were Madame of Jiang and Xiao Baolin. The two of them wholeheartedly harmed the princess. In fact, they asked for it in the end. Apart from the two of them, there was no one else who wanted Princess dead. Moreover, when Princess was in Marquis Xing's mansion, she had treated old Madame, so everyone in Marquis Xing's mansion knew that Princess had some medical skills. In addition, Xiao Baolin was still in the palace. It seemed that all the conditions were fulfilled. Princess, it can't be Xiao Baolin. Xiao Baolin can't even protect himself in the Imperial Palace. How could he plot against you? Yu Jie thought it was impossible, shook her head and objected. Although Xiao Baolin had the motive to harm the princess and knew about her, he didn't have the ability to do anything to the princess in the Imperial Palace. Xiao Baolin couldn't order the people around the Empress Dowager, not to mention that Xiao Baolin was familiar with the Empress Dowager's character. How could he speak in front of the Empress Dowager? Even if it's not her, it has something to do with her. She can't go to the Empress Dowager, but as long as someone can go to the Empress Dowager, it will be fine. On the other hand, she can't directly deal with me, but she can secretly send someone. She has a helper in the Imperial Palace. Xiao Wanru said slowly with a trace of coldness in her eyes. It sounded unreasonable, but after thinking about it carefully, it made much more sense. Who will help Xiao Baolin? Yu Jie said in confusion, she is like this now. Is there anyone who thinks highly of her, or Prince Yu and Prince Zhou? After hearing what she said, Yu Jie was also shocked. It's possible. I think it might be Prince Yu and Prince Zhou who helped her. Xiao Baolin wants to deal with the princess because of the grudge between him and the princess, while Prince Yu or Prince Zhou may do it because of the prince. The princess was injured before, but nothing happened to her. They are determined to let the princess get hurt. Chu Lun nodded repeatedly and thought that Yu Jie's words made sense. When the assassination failed, he came up with another plan. He was bound to kill the princess. If Prince Yu or Prince Zhou took action, some things could be explained. It was not a big problem for the Imperial kitchen to take action or change a person, no matter if it was Prince Yu or Prince Zhou. With Xiao Baolin's knowledge and hatred for the princess, he would definitely take action immediately. It's not them. There is another person who is more likely to do it. Xiao Wanru shook her head. She had always suspected that person, but she looked very mysterious and didn't want to provoke her. Now it seemed that even if she didn't want to provoke her, that person had already taken the initiative to harm her. Those dishes without medicine can be eaten and the soup can be drunk. I'll eat some and you can also eat some. As for the rice, you can also eat some. Those who are not injured can eat some, Xiao Wanru said. If she didn't eat, she wouldn't have the energy to think about it. After eating some, she could think more when she was energetic. Those people should have also calculated that she was weak, so her reaction was much slower than before, and even she had to eat some. Originally, she had to eat the rice, but now she couldn't eat it. Fortunately, everything else was fine. Yujie and Chu Lu hurriedly helped Xiao Wanru to get up. After she sat down, Yujie brought over the 2 suspicious dishes and let Xiao Wanru smell them. Xiao Wanru shook her head. In fact, it was fine. It was the smell of the soup, which seemed to have the smell of medicine. It should be put in the same layer as the soup bowls. After a long time, there was such a strong smell of medicine, as if they had been drugged. The soup bowls were moved over again. The 3 of them ate a little and stopped. Xiao Wanru felt a little more energetic after her stomach was full. She frowned slightly. Was it just to deal with her? They used such a big force and even used the power of the palace just to deal with a useless Princess Chen? She was seriously injured. Even if something really happened, it wouldn't be too surprising. Today was the Empress Dowager's birthday. She had deliberately said that she would come to present the birthday gift in person. It was true that they could kill her if they schemed against her, but what else could they do? She reached out to rub the space between her eyebrows. In her last life, she really didn't inquire about this kind of thing. Of course, she wouldn't inquire about this kind of thing at that time. She only occasionally heard from the palace servants that she entered the palace in the year of the consort selection. It had been 3 years since then, and whatever happened in the palace had passed. Such a thing was not something that the palace servants could casually talk about. So, was it true that only the maple leaf painting happened on the Empress Dowager's birthday? Was there anything else? Prince Zhou rebelled? Prince Zhou was forced to rebel? Right? What made Prince Zhou and the Empress feel that there was no way out and only rebelling was the best way? The maple leaf painting also happened in this life. Although it was limited to the smallest scope and not many people knew about it, it still happened and the Empress was involved. However, even with this incident, she was suspected of being assassinated by someone sent by Prince Zhou. The Empress was still the Empress, and Prince Zhou was still the legitimate son of the palace. In any case, Prince Zhou and the Empress were not forced to a dead end, and they didn't need to rebel. But what if something happened at this time and the Empress and Prince Zhou were blamed? For example, her own death? She suddenly thought of something, and a trace of cold hostility flashed across her watery eyes. Forcing Prince Zhou to rebel with her own life? So in the last life, what did he use to superimpose on the Empress and Prince of Zhou and force Prince of Zhou to rebel? In the 2 lives, some traces were vaguely the same, and some traces were different. In addition, with the loss of memory, Xiao Wanru couldn't remember the specific situation. If she guessed correctly, it should be the Empress who told her grandma to send someone to warn her. Yujie, Chu Lu, if you see the person who delivers lunch again, will you recognize him? Xiao Wanru suddenly asked. Yujie and Chu Lu looked at each other and nodded affirmatively. Your Highness, Chu Lu and I were afraid that something would happen just now, so we took a few more glances and remembered that person's appearance. This person was probably also a eunuch in the Empress's palace. If she couldn't find out everything, she would die in vain. If she could find out, it would involve the Empress. The assassination in Prince Chen's mansion and the poisoning in the palace would inevitably make it difficult for the Empress to convince the public. She was afraid that after finding out her death, the Empress would be deposed. She would use her life to drag the Empress down from power. If she died, the Empress and Prince Zhou would also be implicated, and Prince Yu would benefit in the end? And Xiao Yanru? She always felt that there were still some things she hadn't figured out. Didn't the Empress care about her life and death at this stage? Is Princess Chen awake? A sharp voice suddenly came from outside the tent. The voice was very loud, and it was obvious that it was the unique voice of a eunuch in the palace. Xiao Wanru gestured to Yujie, and Yujie hurriedly went out. Looking at a eunuch standing in front of her, she asked unhappily, "What's the matter?" "Great Elder Princess is worried about Princess Chen, so she sent me to ask if Princess Chen has woken up." The eunuch bowed and said with a smile, Are you sent by Ru and Great Elder Princess? Yujia looked the eunuch up and down and asked. What happened just now made her still have a lingering fear, so she asked very carefully at this time. And Great Elder Princess was not the only Great Elder Princess who entered the palace today. She asked clearly so that she wouldn't be confused and let others take advantage of her. It's and Great Elder Princess who sent me here. The eunuch smiled and nodded repeatedly. It seemed that he had a good temper. Of course, Princess Chen's identity was different, so the eunuchs in the palace didn't dare to be presumptuous. Go back and report to Great Elder Princess that our princess has woken up. It's nothing serious. Let Great Elder Princess rest assured. Yujia said. Then I'll go to report to Great Elder Princess now. You can serve Princess Chen for lunch. The eunuch smiled like a flower, as if he was really worried about Xiao Wanru. Then he turned around and left without saying anything else. Everything seemed to be normal. The only news he heard was that Princess Chen had woken up and was about to have lunch soon. Chapter 1105. Then you can go back. Yujia waved her hand and turned to enter the tent. However, the eunuch didn't leave immediately. After rolling his eyes a few times, he carefully approached the fallen gauze curtain. The gauze curtain was not thick and very light, but it was not very transparent. Only when he got closer, he could vaguely see the figure inside. Your Highness, it's Great Elder Princess asking if you have eaten. The eunuch heard the servant girl who came out to answer him just now reported. Thank you, Grandma. The extremely weak voice of a woman should be Princess Chen. Your Highness, let me serve you. Another woman's voice came from inside. It was another servant girl of Princess Chen. Just have some soup. I can't eat it. Princess Chen's voice was very weak. Your Highness, you are not in good health, so you should have more soup. Have some rice first and then have soup, okay? The servant girl persuaded her. Well, okay. Although Princess Chen was full of reluctance, she could tell that she was willing to listen to the servant girl's advice. The eunuch nodded with satisfaction, turned around, and left to report to his master. After the eunuch left quietly, Yujia said in a low voice, Your Highness, the eunuch has left. Do you want me to follow him to see who is plotting against you? Xiao Wanru's eyes were like a cold pool. It's useless for you to go. This is the Imperial Palace. Besides, the eunuch is not an important figure. Even if you stare at him, you will only see a servant in the Imperial Palace later. If you stare at him, you will find traces. Your Highness, do you want them to plot against you? Yujia said angrily. They not only plotted against her master, but also sent a eunuch to check on her for fear that her master had not eaten. If it weren't for her master repeatedly telling her not to act rashly, she would have been so angry that she wanted to slap the eunuch. No, there will be an accident later, Xiao Wanru said coldly. When the eunuch came over just now, an idea flashed in her mind. She actually remembered who they had plotted against in the previous life. It was Chu Luchen. Yes, Chu Liuchen's body was the weakest, and he almost couldn't stand some overbearing medicine. The medicine to invigorate blood in the food was very overbearing. As long as one was injured, it was easy to bleed. However, if one was not injured, he couldn't stand it either, just like Chu Luchen. In the previous life, no one knew whether Chu Luchen escaped or because his body was as good as it was now, so the medicine had no effect on him. But one thing was certain. In the previous life, they had schemed against Chu Luchen. Only Chu Luchen was the most suitable. The medicine, which was not a big deal to others, might be fatal to him. These people are really despicable. Help me lie down and have a rest, Xiao Wanru said. Yu Jie and Chu Lu looked at each other. Although they were puzzled, they still helped her lie down and covered her with the cloak. Someone should come over later. You can tell them that something happened to me. They said that I was lying in bed without any movement and couldn't be woken up. Xiao Wanru narrowed her long eyes and said coldly, Your Highness, if an imperial physician is sent here, he will find out, Chu Lu said. No, I'm not in good health, so it's normal for me to faint, Xiao Wanru said. The so-called faint was basically the performance of people who were in a poor state. In this state, They might not be woken up no matter how hard they tried. In addition, she was already injured, and it was very likely that something happened to her when she was out of breath and weak. Xiao Wanru's current situation was very bad, which was also the reason why the two servant girls were worried before. They were afraid that something would happen to her when she fell asleep. She glanced sideways at the food on the table that had not been cleaned up and said, "When the Empress Dowager comes back, you go to see her and tell her that I couldn't be woken up no matter what." Since these people wanted to use her life as a stepping stone, then they should make it bigger. Your Highness, I understand. When and Great Elder Princess comes back later, shall we tell her the truth first? Yu Jie nodded and said, "There's no need to tell Grandma the truth. Grandma is straightforward, and it's easy to give herself away if we tell her the truth. It's better to pretend that she doesn't know anything." Xiao Wanru shook her head. Given Grandma's character, even if she controlled it well, it was inevitable that there would be some differences. The best way was to pretend that she didn't know anything, so that all her reactions were true. And it would be more believable. But if and Great Elder Princess comes back and wants to see you, what should we do? Chulu had different doubts. She was afraid that and Great Elder Princess would come to see the princess. If the princess was fine at that time, it would be unreasonable for the Empress Dowager to be in trouble soon. Their expressions of apprehension seemed unreal. They dared to say it in front of the Empress Dowager. Why didn't and Great Elder Princess, who was the princess's biological grandmother? If Grandma comes early, you will make a scene at that time. If Grandma comes with the Empress Dowager, you will go directly to the tent in the middle to find the Empress Dowager. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and came up with an idea. Under normal circumstances, of course, and Great Elder Princess came with the Empress Dowager. And Great Elder Princess and the Empress Dowager were sisters-in-law, and they had a good relationship. In addition, she had said that she would go back before, so it was impossible for and Great Elder Princess to come to see her early. But it didn't mean that it was impossible. Xiao Wanru thought of two ideas. No matter which one it was, it would eventually be brought to the Empress Dowager. However, one was caused by the people of Prince Chen's mansion, while the other was caused by and Great Elder Princess. Xiao Wanru didn't want to involve and Great Elder Princess in it, so she could only hope that and Great Elder Princess would come later. Of course, those who plotted behind the scenes probably didn't want to involve and Great Elder Princess in it. Compared with and Great Elder Princess, the people of Prince Chen's mansion would be more emotional and it would be easier to attract the attention of the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. After giving a few more detailed instructions to Yu Jie and Chulu, Xiao Wanru closed her eyes to rest. In a daze, she seemed to fall asleep, but she didn't seem to fall asleep. And Great Elder Princess did want to come first. She was really worried about Xiao Wanru. After being reminded by the Empress, she felt that she should send someone to see if Xiao Wanru had eaten. After telling her to eat well, she was still worried. The banquet was very lively. Every gift given to the Empress Dowager was very spirited, but and Great Elder Princess was really not in the mood to appreciate it, because she was afraid of her granddaughter's health. When all the gifts were given and everyone was almost finished, she took out a handkerchief to wipe her mouth and was about to get up. "Where are you going?" and Great Elder Princess, who was sitting beside her, asked in a low voice when she saw that she was about to get up. Their table was full of princesses, and it was close to the Empress Dowager's table. Chapter 1106. Mother, summon the Imperial physician first. The Empress reminded her. The Empress Dowager nodded, asked someone to summon the Imperial physician, and led them to the small tent. When they arrived at the tent, they saw and Great Elder Princess sitting on the couch in a panic, holding Xiao Wanru's hand on the bed with tears streaming down her face. The Empress Dowager's body swayed, and she stood still with the help of a palace maid. She took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice, "How is Princess Chen?" Empress Dowager. And Great Elder Princess was helped up by Nanny Gao. She reluctantly bowed to the Empress Dowager and cried uncontrollably again. "What's wrong with Princess Chen?" The Empress Dowager had no time to care about Ruan Great Elder Princess. She hurried to the bed and saw Xiao Wanru lying motionless on the bed with a pale face. She was so shocked that she almost fell down. Her grandson asked her to take care of the princess for him, but she died at her birthday banquet. How could she explain it to her grandson? What the hell is going on? After calming down, the Empress Dowager turned to Yu Jie and Chu Lu, who were kneeling on the ground. They were the two maids who served Xiao Wanru, and the Empress Dowager had seen them before. Nanny Wei reached out to help the Empress Dowager sit down in a chair on one side. The Empress sat down in another chair, and the rest of the concubines and princesses crowded at the entrance of the tent. Everyone looked inside nervously. Although the situation was not very good when Princess Chen sent the congratulatory gift, she did not suddenly disappear. How could a good person disappear all of a sudden? Everyone had a relationship with the royal family, so it was easy to involve it in murder. Someone had tried to assassinate Princess Chen before. In order to assassinate Princess Chen, they even made such a big noise. Princess Chen survived the disaster last time, but it did not mean that she would survive the disaster this time. They looked at each other, and all the meanings were expressed without words. Everything was fine just now. How could such a thing happen? It must be because you two servant girls didn't take good care of them. Guards, take these two servant girls away and punish them with 20 strokes of the rod. Empress Dowager was really angry. Thinking of her speechless face when her grandson came back and asked her for her, the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Would Chen think that his princess had an accident because she forced herself to send her a congratulatory gift? Thinking that this thing would fall on her, the Empress Dowager was even more annoyed. Empress Dowager, please forgive me. Our princess was fine before. She even got up to eat. After eating, she went back to sleep and became like this. Yu Jie cried loudly and kowtowed several times on the ground. Empress Dowager, when Princess Consort fell asleep, she was still fine. This servant has been waiting on her side. After sleeping for so long, she still hasn't woken up. This servant remembered to call Princess Consort, but no matter how Princess Consort called, she didn't wake up. This servant panicked and reported to Empress Dowager. Chu Lu also kowtowed to Empress Dowager twice and cried loudly. The two servant girls kowtowed very hard. Since they were on the mud, they kowtowed loudly and their foreheads immediately turned blue. After eating, she had an accident? And Great Elder Princess didn't care that Empress Dowager was here at this time and asked anxiously. At present, she only saw her granddaughter lying there with a pale face without a trace of blood, so she was flustered. Yes, our princess didn't want to use it at first. Great Elder Princess sent someone over, so our princess used a little more, but, why did she fall asleep and not get up? Yu Jie explained while crying. Xiao Wanru was lying there extremely calmly on the bed. Her pale face was without a trace of blood, but her expression was extremely calm. Under the cloak, it could be seen that her hands were folded in front of her chest in a neat manner, as if she had fallen asleep normally. Eating? Is it in the meal? And Great Elder Princess's smile looked more uncomfortable than crying. She looked around in panic as if she was looking for something. Finally, she saw the food basket in the corner of the tent and said, check what's in it. Is there anything else in it? Empress Dowager, Great Elder Princess, when there were only two of us, a eunuch from the kitchen came to take the food basket, but we didn't let him take it. It was obviously not him who sent the lunch before. Why did he change in such a short time? Yu Jie said. If Great Elder Princess hadn't specially asked us to have more lunch today, our princess wouldn't have. Chu Lu also cried and said, I was reminded by the Empress, so I asked him to make such a trip. And Great Elder Princess murmured almost to herself subconsciously. The Empress Dowager was calmer than her. At this time, she had already sorted out her thoughts and her eyes fell on the Empress's face. Your Majesty, it was your servant who asked the Imperial kitchen to prepare lunch for Princess Chen, right? Originally, it was the Empress Dowager's idea, and she also intended to ask someone to do it. It happened that the Empress's servant was going to the kitchen to check on the banquet, so the Empress took over this matter. She didn't think it was a big deal before, but now it was obvious that something had happened to the meal and great elder princess's words made everyone feel that there seemed to be something wrong. Was it really the Empress's doing? If it was the Empress's doing, it could be explained. It was said that the assassination of Princess Chen had not been investigated yet, but there were only a few people who wanted to deal with Princess Chen. It was very likely that the Empress and Prince Zhou did it. Now that the first plan failed, they came up with a second plan, and they even wanted to kill Princess Chen. The Empress had always flaunted her gentleness and kindness on the surface, but in fact she had a fierce heart and was not really kind. It was very likely that she would do such a thing to Princess Chen. What happened in the palace was most likely to be involved in the Empress. Mother, I really asked someone to order lunch for Princess Chen according to your instructions. Seeing that the Empress Dowager suspected her, the Empress was angry and resentful, but she had to stand up and explain. The eunuch who sent the food and the eunuch who came to pick it up were not the same person. Does the Empress know that? The Empress Dowager said with a cold face and a stern voice. When the Imperial physician came, she would definitely ask the Imperial physician to investigate the matter of the meal first. Everything in the palace had its own rules. It wasn't something that anyone could take over if they wanted to. Mother, I really don't know such a thing, and I don't know why the Imperial kitchen sent different eunuchs. Mother, I will investigate it now, and I will not let them off easily after I find out. The Empress was eager to clear herself and hurriedly expressed her position. Punish a few eunuchs? Something happened to Princess Chen, but only 2 eunuchs were punished. Your Majesty, is it that Princess Chen doesn't pay enough attention to it, or that Prince Chen doesn't pay enough attention to it? Will Prince Chen also get into trouble because of this kind of groundless thing next time? At that time, you will also dismiss this matter by saying that you will not let them off easily. The Empress Dowager was angry and anxious. She slapped the table hard and said, in the crowd, the princesses and s were all silent, lowered their heads, and did not dare to say a word. The Empress Dowager and the Empress had a dispute, and they did not dare to say anything. At that time, they might even lose their lives. Many people secretly thought that this matter was really serious. It was said that Prince Chen, who was going to the capital city soon, would make trouble at that time. It was not because Prince Chen treated Princess Chen very well, but because of Prince Chen's temperament. On the surface, Prince Chen seemed to be graceful and gentle, but in fact he was an unforgiving and domineering person. If he was really provoked, it was really hard to guess what would happen next. He was not a person who was willing to suffer losses, even if the opponent was his eldest brother or second brother. Mother, I will definitely find out the truth, and I will definitely find out who is behind it. I will definitely give Princess Chen an explanation. The Empress was also angry and bitter. This matter inexplicably became related to her, but she did not do anything. She just asked someone to give an order and kindly asked more. Now it was her fault. If she had known it earlier, she would not have kindly asked her and great elder princess at that time. Now it sounded that it was all her fault. Empress Dowager, I know that eunuch. I have seen both the one who gave him and the one who took him later. We paid special attention to him and remembered it. Yujia wiped her red eyes and said, we can both recognize him. Chu Lu also said, take one of them to the Imperial kitchen to recognize him. The Empress Dowager said coldly. She had already made a decision in her heart. Xiao Wanru's accident was too unexpected, but it was not Chu Liuchen's accident after all. Although the Empress Dowager looked at the Empress with gloomy eyes, she was still rational. Come on, take one of them down to recognize him. The Empress replied loudly. It's not necessary. My servant can take him there. The Empress Dowager said to the servant of the Palace of Benevolent Peace. A eunuch came over and took Chu Lu away. The Empress was almost slapped in the face in public. A trace of annoyance flashed in her eyes, but she could not say anything. The Empress Dowager did this to prevent her from secretly playing tricks. Speaking of this matter, the Empress was both aggrieved and angry. She was inexplicably involved in this matter. The Empress Dowager had wanted to ease the relationship with Xiao Wanru so that the Emperor and the Empress Dowager would not suspect her. Now she was suspected of doing something to Xiao Wanru. She was so upset that she almost lost control. The imperial physician came in a hurry. He first bowed to the Empress Dowager and the Empress, and then was taken to a corner to check the food that had been eaten. The imperial physician first tested the poison with a silver needle and found that there was no reaction. Then he carefully checked it. When he found out the truth, his face changed dramatically. "How is it?" the Empress Dowager asked. "Empress Dowager, the food has been drugged with blood circulation medicine. Princess Chen still has wounds on her body. If such medicine is used, will. The imperial physician stammered. He only heard that something had happened to Princess Chen, but he did not know what had happened. But looking at the current situation, it should be that Princess Chen's wounds had burst and she had bled to death. Zhuozhua! Ru, and great elder princess let out a cry. Her body went limp and she fainted. Nanny Gao reached out to hold Ru, and great elder princess, and shouted anxiously, "Great elder princess, great elder princess." What happened? A cold voice suddenly came from the door, which made the Empress, who was about to speak, feel a chill on her back. Chapter 1107. Why did Chu Luchen come back? Didn't they say that he was still a distance away from the capital and it was impossible for him to come back? Chu Luchen, who was standing at the door, looked travel-worn. He was wearing a light-colored brocade robe, which was not as neat and tidy as usual. His handsome face showed some tiredness. His skin was almost pale and transparent, and his lips were slightly red, which made him look more indifferent than others. Right now, his eyes were filled with malice. His ghastly gaze was like a ghastly prison, forcing the Empress, who had turned around, to take a step back. She instinctively covered her chest, and her heart suddenly beat wildly. Chu Luchen had always been ruthless when he fell out with the Empress. One moment he was sunny, and the next moment he became cold and ruthless. But at least in front of the Empress, he was basically very gentle. At this moment he inexplicably made people feel that he was gloomy and scary, which was a side that the Empress had never seen before. Not only the Empress, but also all the princesses and concubines unconsciously stepped back and carefully avoided Prince Chen's gaze. They only felt that when such a gaze fell on them, it made them feel suffocated as if they were bloodthirsty. Only the Empress Dowager stood up in surprise. "Chen, you're back." The news from the Emperor said that Chu Luchen could not make it to the Empress Dowager's birthday this time, which made the Empress Dowager feel very sorry. Now seeing Chu Luchen appear in front of her, she was surprised and happy, but immediately felt inexplicably guilty. It was Prince Chen who was lying on the bed, and something had just happened. She hurriedly took a few steps forward, trying to stop him from looking inside. "How can I not care about my grandmother's birthday? I specially rushed to the capital. I just went to see my uncle and handed over the task, and then I came to visit my grandmother," Chu Luchen said, and his cold eyes fell on the Empress Dowager, and his eyes became slightly warm. After that, he lifted his robe and knelt down to the Empress Dowager, wishing his grandmother happiness as vast as the East Sea and longevity as long as the South Mountain, and good luck every year in the world. Good luck all over the world. The Empress Dowager excitedly helped Chu Luchen up. Looking at his handsome face, her eyes turned red, and she took his hand and said, "It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. Imperial Grandmother, if I don't come back, will I not be able to see Zhuozhua for the last time?" Chu Liuchen's face suddenly became cold again, and there was a black mist at the bottom of his eyes. His eyes, which were clear just now, immediately became gloomy as if he could see the bottomless hell. The concubines that had just caught their breath immediately lowered their heads again, not daring to look at his extremely handsome face. Men could also be handsome like this, but this handsomeness was not refined and gentle. It carried a dark and bloodthirsty aura, as if it could destroy everyone here in an instant. Prince Chen, Princess Chen, Ruian Great Elder Princess also woke up from the shock. She was not frightened by Chu Luchen, but felt very wronged and angry. She took a step forward, walked up to Chu Luchen and said angrily, "Prince Chen, what did you promise me? You said that you would take good care of Zhuozhua, but you took care of her like this." Ruian Great Elder Princess was so angry and annoyed that she almost couldn't breathe. Chu Luchun put down the Empress Dowager's hand, bowed deeply to and Great Elder Princess, and then raised his head. Great Elder Princess, don't worry. I will definitely find the murderer who wants to assassinate Princess Chen. Find the murderer? What's the use of finding a murderer? Someone has poisoned the food just now and killed Zhuozhua. And Great Elder Princess burst into tears. Chu Luchun tightly pursed his lips, and there seemed to be a storm at the bottom of his eyes. After a long time, he slowly asked, "Who did it?" He said that it was a servant of the Empress who went to the Imperial kitchen. And Great Elder Princess felt very distressed and said while crying, "Zhuozhua has a hard life. She lost her parents when she was a child and lived outside. Even if she was recognized by her family, there was no one who really loved her. It was not easy for her to marry you, and she thought that the bitterness would be over and the sweetness would come, but she didn't expect that she would end up like this. If she had known this earlier, she would not have married at that time. At least she could have lived a peaceful life. She was a girl, and she was an unmarried girl. Who would have such a great hatred and want to kill her? But she died like this in the Imperial Palace. Everyone knew that this matter had to be caused by Prince Qin. There must be someone who wanted to deal with Prince Qin, so he would deal with Princess Qin first. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was her marriage to Prince Qin that caused her to end up like this. Some soft-hearted people thought that Princess Qin did have a hard life. Everyone had heard about what had happened in Marquis Xing's mansion. It was true that Marquis Xing's mansion was not kind to Princess Qin. Now old Madam went to cultivate in seclusion. Although she did not say it clearly, well-informed people knew that old Madam was not kind, so something happened. Otherwise, why did old Madam go to cultivate in seclusion instead of enjoying life in her own mansion? Grandaunt, don't worry. I will definitely find out the truth, Chu Luchun said, and his eyes fell on Xiao Wanru, who was lying on the bed inside. Xiao Wanru, who was lying motionless on the Imperial consort couch, was silent. Imperial Grandmother, you go back with Grand Aunt first. Leave the Imperial physician here, Chu Luchun murmured. Although he said it to Empress Dowager and Great Elder Princess, his eyes still fell straight on the person lying inside. Don't be too sad, Empress Dowager comforted. She was really worried about Chu Luchun's health. Imperial Grandmother, don't worry. I'm fine, Chu Luchun said, still looking inside. Empress Dowager still wanted to say something, but she didn't know where to start. She sighed helplessly and left with everyone. And Great Elder Princess didn't want to leave at first, but seeing Chu Luchun like this, she was angry but helpless. She could only walk out while crying. When she walked to the door of the tent, she suddenly said, "Let the Imperial physician have a look." Why did Chu Luchun fall asleep? Maybe he could be saved. After saying this, she supported Gao Momo and followed behind the crowd to leave. Empress Dowager also heard this. She looked back in astonishment and saw and Great Elder Princess sobbing. She originally wanted to say something, but at this time, she felt that she couldn't get anything out of her even if she asked, so she could only shake her head. And Great Elder Princess might also be dizzy from crying. How could she save a dead person? She only had one granddaughter, and she used to love her granddaughter the most. At this time, she probably felt that her granddaughter still had a breath in her heart. It was good for the Imperial physician to have a look. Empress Dowager also took her and Great Elder Princess's words seriously. She completely forgot that and Great Elder Princess was the only one who had met Xiao Wanru when they came in just now. Only she knew that Xiao Wanru was still alive even though she was lying there silently. The Empress, and other princesses all had the same idea as Empress Dowager. They all thought that and Great Elder Princess was very depressed. He had suffered such a huge blow that his mind was clouded by phlegm, and he had lost his mind when he spoke. How could a dead person be saved? No one cared about what and Great Elder Princess said. The Empress didn't even raise her head and just lowered her head worriedly. This matter was already very difficult to handle, and now it was even more difficult to handle. This matter actually involved her. When Chu Luchun was not here, it was difficult for her to get away. Now that Chu Luchun was back, it was even more difficult for her to deal with it. Infantiyuang who was beside and great elder princess, was in a good mood. She deliberately looked at the gauze curtain hanging behind her and raised the corners of her mouth silently. It was great that Xiao Wenru was dead. It was better for a girl like her to die. No matter how much Prince Chen doted on her, she was just a dead person. How could she be compared with her precious life? Xiao Wenru's life was the most precious. How could Xiao Wenru's life be compared with hers? Xiao Wenru had humiliated her before. Grandma also asked her to flatter Xiao Wenru and make friends with her. Now Xiao Wenru was dead. It was really great. They had different thoughts, but they all looked very serious on the surface. The Empress Dowager returned to the big tent and sat down, without a smile on her face. The Empress was also worried. If the two of them didn't speak, no one else dared to speak. In the big tent, only Ru and great elder princess sobbed from time to time. In the small tent, the imperial physician reached out to carefully feel Xiao Wenru's pulse. When he felt the faint warmth in his hand, the imperial physician relaxed and looked at Princess Chen lying on the bed in astonishment. She was not dead? He came late. When he came in, he saw Princess Chen lying there motionless and Ru and great elder princess crying like that, so he thought that Princess Chen was dead. Now Prince Chen asked him to feel her pulse, which scared the imperial physician a lot. How could he feel her pulse when she was dead? However, in front of the gloomy Prince Chen, he didn't dare to refuse, so he reached out his hand tremblingly. Now he took a deep breath and felt alive. Fortunately, Princess Chen was not dead and Prince Chen was not really crazy. He was afraid that Princess Chen on the bed had already stopped breathing. Prince Chen still asked him to feel her pulse. If he couldn't feel her pulse, he might be killed by this crazy Prince Chen. He calmed down, carefully felt her pulse, and frowned. After a long while, he put down his hand. "How is she?" Chu Luchen asked in a cold voice, and his eyes fell on the imperial physician coldly. The imperial physician trembled and hurriedly said, "Princess Chen should be fine. It was just that she had lost a lot of breath and was very weak." It was a miracle that Princess Chen, who was so weak, could survive such a serious injury. But in addition, there was really no sign of poisoning, and there was no feeling of blood circulation medicine. The imperial physician also felt very strange. Since she was fine, why didn't she wake up? A chill appeared at the bottom of Chu Liuchen's dark bottomless eyes. "If you talk nonsense for me, I will kill you." When he spoke, his tone was calm and unhurried. But with his cold eyes, it made people feel palpitated, and they knew that he didn't say it in a moment of anger. The imperial physician originally wanted to tell the truth, but now he was not sure whether what he sensed was true. Could it be that something really happened to Princess Chen, and he couldn't see it? Chapter 1108. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Your Highness, Princess Chen's current condition? I'm afraid it's not very good. The imperial physician carefully replied. I just want to ask when she will wake up? Chu Luchen said coldly, his eyes cold and sharp. The Tai unconsciously raised his head and met the pair of eyes that made people tremble. His lips trembled a few times in panic before he finally replied, reporting to Wang Yi, this lowly official does not know the specifics and can only carefully wait for Wang Fei to wake up. How dare you make me wait? I'll wait. If something happens to the princess, you'll be buried with her. Chu Luchen said coldly. His voice was not loud, but the determination in his words could be heard. He was sure that if something really happened to the Princess Chen in front of him, he would definitely be buried with her. The imperial physician was so frightened that his legs went soft and he knelt down. Go out first and wait outside, Chu Luchen said with a sullen face. The imperial physician didn't dare to stay any longer. The entire tent gave him a heavy feeling, as if something terrifying was spilling out of his chest. He staggered up and walked out of the tent. He felt cold all over and looked back at the tent with lingering fear. He could only hope that Chen Wang Fei was fine. Imperial physician, how is Princess Chen? Her Majesty the Empress sent this servant to ask. A young eunuch was not far from the tent. When he saw the imperial physician come out, he trotted to his side and asked in a low voice. He was sent by the empress to gather information. Princess Jin? The imperial physician shook his head and wiped his cold sweat with a bitter smile. He didn't know what to do at the moment. It depends on when Princess Chen will be fine, otherwise, at this point, the imperial physician shook his head again. He didn't dare to say that he would be fine. Princess Chen hasn't? The little eunuch blinked his eyes and didn't dare to continue. He only pursed his lips at the imperial physician. If it was in the past, the grand physician would have told everything he knew to the person sent by the empress. But now, he was also out of his wits and didn't have the mood to say anything to the little Tai Jin. Carrying the medicine box, she frowned and stood not far from the small tent, waiting for Prince Jin to summon her. The little Tai Jin still wanted to ask something but saw that the head doctor lowered his head and didn't say a word, as if he didn't hear what he said. He knew that the head doctor didn't seem to have the intention to answer his question. He scratched his head and went back to report to the empress. In fact, he didn't understand these words. Was there still hope for Princess Jin? Or was he still holding on to his last breath? After all the outsiders in the tent left, Xiao Wanru, who was lying on the bed, slowly opened her eyes and saw a pair of cold and angry eyes. Chu Liuchen's handsome face was right above her. Xiao Wanru smiled, moved her stiff hand, grabbed his sleeve, and shook it gently. Xiao Wanru's sleeves were torn open fiercely, and her hands fell down heavily. She frowned and let out a low cry of pain. Are you injured? Chu Liuchen's hand hesitated for a moment, but he still reached over, pulled her hand and asked coldly, Is it on this arm? His words were cold, but he didn't hit her hard. He gently pulled her hand and wanted to roll up her sleeve to see her injury. It's not this arm. I'm a little stiff lying on the bed. Xiao Wanru shook her head and said softly. She reached out to pull his sleeve again and said with a little shyness, Don't be angry. I didn't do it on purpose. It was the best thing to do in that situation. Otherwise, someone would definitely ask about it later. I'll deal with it later. It has nothing to do with you. Chu Liuchen said coldly with his eyes full of coldness. He looked at Xiao Wanru coldly and remained unmoved. But, in that case, even the emperor and the empress would be alarmed. Xiao Wanru blamed him aggrievedly with her eyes turning red. If I didn't do it at that time, I'm afraid it would be difficult for me to pass the test. I'm also afraid that you will be suspected. My injury is the best proof that it has nothing to do with you. Chu Liuchen's eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face. Looking at her pale little face, he felt distressed and wanted to scold her fiercely. However, when he saw her red eyes and pale face, he had already collapsed. There was no longer the anger he had felt when he got the news and came all the way here. He sighed heavily in the bottom of his heart and carefully held her in his arms. His eyes were still fierce where Xiao Wanru couldn't see. Remember, there won't be a next time. There won't be a next time. Xiao Wanru quickly promised. It's good that you remember it. If there is a next time, I can't guarantee what I will do. Chu Liuchen warned her. If he hadn't seen Xiao Wanru's eyelids move slightly and then lie down obediently when he entered the door, he would have thought that something had really happened. Fortunately, she was fine. He wanted to hold her tightly, but he was afraid of touching her wound, so he could only hold her carefully. At this moment, his heart was at ease again, as if something most precious was still in his heart. For him, she had long been the most precious thing in the world, but this time she fell into such a dangerous situation. Although he took advantage of the situation, he didn't want to see her get hurt again because of him, even if she did it on purpose. It was a fact that she got hurt. She was the best cover for him. He married her to protect her, but he didn't expect that she would protect him this time. This was the last time, and there would be no next time. In fact, he could become stronger and make a more thorough arrangement, so that she would never get hurt again. It was he who didn't protect her well. He pressed her against his chest with a little force. His heart, which had not been settled for a while, was finally at ease. Then he put her down, looked down at her soft little face and asked, What did Mingqiu Nun say? Mingqiu Nun said that she was fine and just needed to recuperate first. Her body is indeed a little weak, but it's just a little weak. Otherwise, why would she come to send a congratulatory gift to Imperial grandmother? Xiao Wanru leaned against his chest and replied softly. What's going on today? Chu Luchen nodded and asked again. Today's incident happened suddenly, and he hadn't received the news yet. He only knew what happened to Xiao Wanru during this period of time, but he really didn't know what happened today. If Xiao Wanru hadn't slightly signaled to him when he came in, he almost thought that it was true. At that moment, all the darkness in his heart broke out, and he had a feeling that he wanted to destroy the whole world. Fortunately, she was not really injured. Hearing Chu Liuchen's question, Xiao Wanru told him what had happened today. She couldn't tell him what had happened in the last life, but when she told him what had happened, she could deviate from that direction and carefully lead Chu Liuchen to that idea. I see. Go back and have a rest first. After Xiao Wanru finished speaking, Chu Liuchen nodded and his eyes became deep. There were some things that happened to coincide with his. Then I'll go back first. Xiao Wanru said. She also knew that it was the best time for her to go back now. After all, this was the Imperial Palace and there were many people. If she returned to Prince Chen's mansion, she would not be spied on. I'll send you back. Chu Liuchen nodded and carefully put down Xiao Wanru. Then he wrapped her in the cloak, picked her up without thinking and strode out. Yu Jie, who was guarding at the door, hurriedly lifted the curtain for them. Go and report to Imperial grandmother that I will come to congratulate her on her birthday later. Chu Liuchen walked out and ordered. Yes, I'll follow your order. Yu Jie hurriedly answered. At this time, she also breathed a sigh of relief. The prince was back, and the whole prince's mansion had a backbone. Next, the princess didn't need to rush ahead. Seeing the prince leave with the princess in his arms, Yu Jie turned and went to the big tent in the middle. The atmosphere in the tent was very dull. The Empress Dowager was still sitting there with a sullen face, and the Empress didn't dare to speak. She just got the news that Princess Chen seemed to be still alive, but so what? Even the Imperial physician had been moved out of the tent. It could be seen that it was not good. She didn't know to what extent this matter would implicate her and how she should deal with it. She kept thinking in her heart and twisted the handkerchief in her hand into a ball. When Great Elder Princess had stopped crying, she kept wiping her tears with red eyes, and her eyes were blank. Since these people didn't say anything, the others didn't dare to say anything. Everyone was in a daze. Empress Dowager, Princess Chen's servant girl is here. A eunuch came in and reported softly. Let her come in and reply. The Empress Dowager calmed down and said in a deep voice. Yu Jie was brought in. After kneeling down and kowtowing to the Empress Dowager, she said, Empress Dowager, our prince took the princess back to his mansion first. He said that he would come to congratulate you on your birthday later. How is your princess? The Empress Dowager asked. I don't know. Yu Jie's eyes turned red. Our prince left with the princess in his arms and asked the Imperial physician to go with them. Her words reminded the Empress Dowager. She turned her head and ordered, send a few more Imperial physicians to cure Princess Chen. In fact, in the Empress Dowager's heart, Xiao Wanru had already died. But at this time, even for the sake of Chu Liuchen, she had to send a few more Imperial physicians there. What she was most afraid of was that her grandson would suffer a great blow. It was not easy for her grandson to recover. Now he suffered such a big blow at this time. Would he be unable to survive? Before, the Empress Dowager had wanted to send a few concubines to Prince Chen's mansion, but now she no longer had this kind of idea. She had to admit that her grandson really cared about Xiao Wanru. It was not a temporary feeling. For so many years, only such a woman had entered his heart. For her mourning, he had waited for her for 3 years. They had just been married for a short time, but they were separated forever. Even ordinary people couldn't cope with such a great sorrow, not to mention that her grandson had just recovered. Empress, sit with them and watch the performance for a while. I have a headache, so I'll go back first. At this time, the Empress Dowager was not in the mood to congratulate the Empress. After thinking for a while, she stood up and said, holding the shoulder of an old nanny, the people of the Palace of Benevolent Peace left in an orderly manner, leaving the Empress Dowager and a group of noble ladies dumbfounded as they watched the Duke of Longevity leave. The Duke of Longevity had left, and Princess Chen's life and death were unknown. Who was still in the mood to be happy now? Who dared to be happy? Chapter 1109. When Xiao Wanru returned to Prince Chen's mansion, she fell asleep. Chu Liuchen's hands were very steady. He held her all the way, and it was so steady that she felt that she was still in bed. Chu Liuchen's breath also calmed her heart. The longing during this period also fell into her heart, and she slowly fell asleep. Although she had pretended that something had happened and had been lying straight, in fact, she had not fallen asleep. Her spirit was also highly concentrated. Listening to the words of the people in the tent, at this moment, she involuntarily relaxed and entered a state of rest. Chu Liuchen still entered Prince Chen's mansion from the side door. A palace maid at the side door saw him and wanted to go forward excitedly, but she was stopped by his cold eyes. Then she carefully retreated. When she was out of Chu Liuchen's sight, she picked up the corner of her dress and ran away. She had to tell the Empress that Prince Chen was back. Prince Chen came back at this time. The Empress had been looking forward to His Highness's return every day. Now it was great. Chu Liuchen returned to the inner courtyard with Xiao Wanru in his arms and carefully put her on the bed. Looking at her pale little face, his heart was pierced fiercely. Then he lowered his head and gently kissed her on the face. When he raised his head, his face had become cold, as if the tenderness just now was just a hallucination. He reached out to take a quilt from the side for Xiao Wanru and carefully covered her with it, for fear that she would be woken up and not sleep well. After looking at her in a daze, he stood up and walked out of the door, where Qing Yu was waiting outside. What did Mingqiu Nun say? Chu Liuchen asked. Mingqiu Nun said that it's not a big deal. She just needs to rest well. Qing Yu did not dare to hide it and immediately repeated Mingqiu Nun's words. Chu Liuchen was relieved and nodded. The princess is asleep inside. Serve her well here. Yes, I know. Qing Yu answered. Yu Jie and Chu Lu had gone with the princess. Now only the princess came back. Qing Yu was also very nervous, but she did not dare to ask more. Chu Liuchen strode out and entered the Imperial Palace from the side door. After looking around, he went directly to the Imperial study where the Emperor was. In the Imperial study, the Emperor had already received the news. When he heard that he had come, he hurriedly asked someone to call him in. Prime Minister Zhang and Prime Minister Wen, who had been discussing inside, came out. On the way, they saw Chu Liuchen, who was travel-worn, and saluted together. Greetings, Your Highness. Prime Ministers, you are too polite. Chu Liuchen raised his hands slightly and said with gentle eyes. At this time, he was still the gentle and handsome Prince Chen in the past. But he was a little different from the past. His imposing manner was more imposing than before. It was the imposing manner of two important ministers. This imposing manner was even more convincing than that of Prince of Zhou, the legitimate son of the Empress. Seeing Chu Liuchen going in, Wen Xiang and Zhang Xiang looked at each other, and a trace of worry flashed across their eyes. Prince Chen was different from before. He seemed to be a little more determined, like a sword out of the sheath, which was inexplicably frightening. This Prince Chen had always been outside of power. What did it mean now? The two prime ministers had a lot on their minds and felt uneasy. Chu Liuchen entered the Imperial study. There was no one else in the Imperial study except the Emperor and eunuch Durong. Greetings, uncle. Chu Liuchen strode in and knelt down to salute the Emperor. The Emperor came out from behind the desk excitedly and said, Don't. Get up quickly. Chu Liuchen did not stand up. He still knelt and said, Uncle, please help me. The Emperor frowned and said, Get up first and talk. Uncle, on this trip, this son was purposely delayed several times on the way back. This son's carriage also had an accident and almost flipped over. In order to hurry to the capital to congratulate Imperial Grandmother, this son abandoned the carriage and rode into the capital. I didn't think that this son's Wang Fei would almost lose her life. Is the security of the Imperial city really that bad? Even a powerless woman can't be tolerated? Chu Liuchen's face changed, but he still did not get up. The emperor's face became very ugly. He stretched out his hand and wanted to pull Chu Luchen up, but when he saw the persistence in Chu Luchen's eyes, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes and put down his hand. Get up first. I know about it. Uncle, do you really know about it? Chu Luchen didn't hesitate this time. He stood up and stared at the emperor with an indescribable sadness in his eyes. Uncle, I know that my life was picked up by you, and I can't be compared with others. It's good that I can live well. In fact, I don't need to cure my body, and I shouldn't marry a wife. If I didn't marry a wife, my princess wouldn't have almost died because of the rebellion. The behavior of the men in black that night and the use of military crossbows was indeed a rebellion in a strict sense. The emperor took a step back, and his face suddenly turned pale. His lips trembled twice, and he said with difficulty, "Chen, why shouldn't you live? You have a noble bloodline. Why can't you live?" "I'm sorry for you." "Uncle, why do you say this? Before I met my princess, I actually don't want to live too long, so as not to disturb others. It's a big crime for me to live. How can I let this big crime implicate Imperial grandmother and uncle? It's just that I met the princess, and I want to stay with her wholeheartedly. But even so, can't I?" Chu Luchen said calmly, and his eyes fell on the emperor. His calmness seemed to be talking about other people's affairs, and the emperor's heart was pulled hard and pulled down hard. What was Chu Luchen's previous situation? Of course, he was clear that he had abandoned himself to despair and didn't care about his life. If it weren't for Princess Chen at present, he might not even care about his life. What did he do wrong? In fact, he didn't do anything wrong at all. He was the most innocent one. Fetal poison? He had suffered a lot before he was born. After he was born, he had been wandering on the edge of life. When he was young, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly in front of him, for fear that he would catch a cold. It was not easy for him to grow up, and now he had the desire to live. All these were really hard to come by. "Don't worry, I will protect you, protect your mansion." Looking at Chu Luchen's calm eyes, the emperor took a deep breath. He was afraid to see Chu Luchen's feeling as if nothing could enter his heart. This kind of calmness, as if everything was dead and he could not care about anything, represented his hopelessness. "Uncle, I just want to live well with the princess," Chu Luchen said in a low voice, and there was a slight fluctuation in his eyes. The emperor could see clearly that only when he mentioned Princess Chen, Chu Luchen's mood fluctuated and he had a little feeling. "Uncle, Imperial ancestor. Those people are not at ease on Mother's birthday. How could they make such a thing in the palace? This time it's my princess. What about next time? Will it be my grandmother or someone else? I don't have many relatives, and I only hope that the relatives I care about can live safe and sound," Chu Luchen said again. After that, he bowed to the emperor. "Uncle, I'm going to see Imperial grandmother. What happened to Princess Consort just now has frightened Imperial grandmother. I'm afraid that Imperial grandmother is not in the mood to watch the performance at this time. But this is also good. There are many people entering the palace today. With so many people, it will be difficult to investigate if something happens. It is impossible to investigate the family of a fourth-level official. The palace is really not safe." After that, he turned and walked out. "Wait a minute." The emperor's voice came from behind. Chu Luchen turned back. "How is your body? Did you hurt yourself on the way back to the capital city?" The emperor took 2 steps forward and asked with concern. "Uncle, don't worry. I am really well. I am a little tired after the long journey, but I can still hold on." Chu Luchen turned back and answered. The emperor's eyes fell on his face, and his handsome face showed a little fatigue. It could be seen that he was really tired. He thought that he could not make it in time, but now he saw him here. He must have rushed through the night and did not stop along the way. "Is your body really okay?" the emperor asked again. "Uncle, don't worry. It's really nothing serious. I should be fine after an early sleep at night," Chu Luchen replied. The emperor looked at him carefully again and checked his face. Although his face was still as pale as before, and his lips were lighter than ordinary people, he was still energetic. The emperor felt relieved. It seemed that Chu Liuchen's body was really well. He could withstand such a long journey, and he was a little stronger than ordinary people. Since your body can stand it, you can go to the court tomorrow. The emperor seemed to have made a major decision, so he waved his hand and said, "I'm leaving." Chu Liuchen nodded and left. When he came out of the imperial study, he looked back at the tall and wide door of the hall, and his eyes became more and more calm. He was not surprised by what the emperor said just now, because this was what he originally wanted to express. His body had recovered and he was no longer a useless prince. His actions of rushing the army was more truthful than what the imperial physician had said. Facts spoke louder than words. After coming out of the imperial study, Chu Liuchen went to the Empress Dowager's Zikong Palace, but he did not see the Empress Dowager. He said that the Empress Dowager was not feeling well, so he went to bed. Chu Liuchen knelt down outside the Empress Dowager's palace, respectfully kowtowed 3 times inside, and then got up and went back. When he returned to Prince Chen's mansion, Xiao Wanru had not woken up yet. After washing up, Chu Liuchen also went to bed, carefully holding the slender figure in his arms, and also closed his eyes. He was really tired all the way. Xiao Wanru was weak due to lack of qi, and Chu Liuchen was tired. They slept until the night. After being woken up by Nanny Yu and Nanny Zheng, they took a little rest. Chu Liuchen personally changed the dressing for Xiao Wanru. When he saw her wound, his face darkened again, and Xiao Wanru coaxed him for a while. After that he fell asleep early. Prince Chen's mansion was peaceful, but the imperial palace was not peaceful. The Empress Dowager was ill. Chapter 11:10. Qianqian. The latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess was updated as soon as possible. The Empress Dowager was found to be ill in the evening. Nanny Wei hurriedly went to find an imperial physician and reported it to Fengyi Palace. However, the chief steward of Fengyi Palace said that the empress had gone to the emperor's imperial study. Nanny Wei thought about it and could only go to the imperial study. As soon as she arrived at the door of the imperial study, she heard the emperor's angry rebuke. Several eunuchs stood at the door with their heads lowered, trembling. When they saw her coming, they immediately winked at her. Nanny Wei did not dare to go in again and stood aside with the eunuchs. The voice inside was very loud, and she could hear the emperor's anger. "What a good empress! What a good empress! What a good empress! What a good empress! What's the use of an empress like you? Very good. Does the empress really think that the imperial harem is under your control?" The imperial kitchen intervenes. "Prince Chen." The emperor's voice could not be heard clearly. Nanny Wei's face turned pale and she stepped back cautiously. She did not dare to listen to this kind of words. It was better to step back a little. The voice inside became soft. Maybe she had stepped back far enough. She could only vaguely hear the emperor's angry rebuke, and then the empress's low whimper. Nanny Wei stepped back a few more steps, and this time she almost retreated to the corner of the wall. After a long time, Nanny Wei's feet were numb. Then she saw several palace maids supporting the empress to leave. The empress was crying and wiping her tears. She was unsteady on her feet. If it weren't for the maids supporting her, she might not even be able to stand. As the empress of the 6S, she left the imperial study in tears like an ordinary woman. Nanny Wei did not dare to go forward. She carefully shrank to one side, for fear that someone would find her here. She regretted coming at this time. She should have waited to come back. After waiting for a while, she saw Durong holding the emperor's decree and going to the imperial harem, followed by several eunuchs. Was he going to announce the decree? Nanny Wei felt more and more uncomfortable. After waiting for a while, she walked to the door of the imperial study with fear and trepidation. She said to the eunuch standing outside the door, "Can you help me report that the Empress Dowager is ill?" Hearing that the Empress Dowager was sick, the little eunuch didn't dare to delay and hurriedly went to report. After a while, he let her in. It was not the first time for Nanny Wei to come to the imperial study. In the past, the imperial study was peaceful, and the emperor's attitude was also very good. Especially because she was the Empress Dowager's servant, the emperor also treated her very well. But at this time, she felt uneasy. Hearing that the Empress Dowager's health wasn't good, the Emperor told her to take good care of the Empress Dowager. He told her to go back first and said that he would come over later. Nanny Wei went back to the palace of Benevolent and Peaceful. Not long after, the Emperor came. The imperial physician found that the Empress Dowager was depressed. In addition, she was old and couldn't bear it for a while, so she got sick. The imperial physician asked the Empress Dowager to have a good rest. The Emperor and the Empress Dowager sent everyone out. After talking with the Empress Dowager for a while, they left the palace of Benevolent and Peaceful. Although Nanny Wei didn't hear it, she felt uneasy for a while and always felt that something was going to happen. In the court meeting the next day, the news of Prince Chen's return had already spread. When Chu Luchen appeared in front of everyone at the court meeting, they all carefully looked at Prince Chen. They found that Prince Chen was in good spirits, although his complexion was much paler than that of ordinary people. Ordinary people were a little too pale, but on the whole, it was not a big deal. This made many courtiers secretly wonder if it was said that Prince Chen was so weak that he couldn't even walk a few steps. When he was in the palace, he basically had to use a wheelchair to walk. What was happening at this time? Some sharp-witted people felt that it was too coincidental for Prince Chen to appear at this time. What did Prince Chen mean? What did the Emperor mean? Everyone secretly guessed in their hearts and inexplicably had a bad feeling. But the next moment, the Emperor dropped a large bomb, so that all the courtiers no longer had the mood to think about Prince Chen. The Emperor wanted to abolish the Empress. The Emperor said that he wanted to abolish the Empress and asked the courtiers' opinion. Such a big thing actually broke out all of a sudden. Although everyone was secretly suspicious of this matter because of the matter of Princess Chen, no one thought that this matter would really be announced in front of the courtiers. How could the Empress of a dynasty be so easily abolished? This was going to cause turmoil in the court. According to the Emperor's announcement, Prince Chen was killed in the harem, and it was inextricably linked to the Empress. Even all the people who contacted Prince Chen were more or less related to the Empress. Prince Chen almost died in the palace yesterday. Fortunately, Prince Chen did not eat those dishes, otherwise she would not be alive at this time. After hearing the Emperor's decree, many courtiers stood up and asked the Emperor for mercy. They said that although it felt that it was the Empress who did it, it was not necessarily the Empress. There must be someone who wanted to secretly deal with the Empress. Besides the Empress, it seemed that this sentence implied concubinage. After all, only Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, who were born by concubinage, were the most competitive. Some people stood on Prince Zhou's side, saying that Prince Zhou was the legitimate son of the Empress, and the Empress had always been steady. This time she was framed, and she must be wronged. It could be said that someone deliberately did it, and whoever benefited from it would be the one who did it. Others stood on Prince Yu's side, saying that Prince Yu was steady and fair, and it was good for concubinage to be in the harem. Now that the Empress had an accident, concubinage must be uneasy, and this matter had to be considered in the long run. Of course, some courtiers said nothing, just stood aside, frowning and quietly listening to the arguments of other courtiers. Chu Liuzhou's face was cold, and he was full of a murderous aura. It was his mother who was going to be abolished. If he didn't try hard to restrain himself, he almost couldn't help but want to slap those courtiers who said that they should consider in the long run. It was obvious that it was his mother who did it. From yesterday's incident to now, Prince Zhou had also heard about what happened to Princess Chen, and he even wanted to sneak into the palace to meet his mother, but he hadn't seen the Empress yet. At this time, he was at a loss and he felt annoyed. He gritted his teeth hard to suppress his anger. Chu Luiwei looked much calmer, but he didn't say anything. He stood aside quietly with his head down, listening to the noise of the courtiers. Chu Luchen was also very calm, but he didn't lower his head. He looked at several courtiers who were talking with a bit of coldness in his eyes. Some people wanted to abolish the Empress, and some wanted to postpone it. Everyone quarreled. For a moment, the whole court was noisy. An imperial censor was so excited that he even wanted to admonish the Empress to death. He was so excited that he almost hit the mahogany dragon pillar in the hall. The Emperor was so angry that he threw all the memorials in his hand down. For a moment, it was quiet in the hall. It was so quiet that even the sound of breathing could be heard clearly. That's all for today. We'll discuss it tomorrow, the emperor said coldly. After that, he turned around and left the court. Seeing the emperor leave, the people in the hall calmed down at this time. They looked at each other and didn't know how to deal with it for a moment. Since the emperor had proposed it, this matter would definitely be discussed in the court in the future. How did it get to this point? What happened to Princess Chen? Someone wanted to inquire about Princess Chen, but when he saw Prince Chen's cold and handsome eyes glancing over, he couldn't help but shiver and immediately didn't dare to open his mouth. This prince seemed to be in a bad mood. If he was annoyed, he would definitely suffer. Most of the courtiers had seen how favored Prince Chen was in the imperial study, so they didn't dare to come forward at this time. Even the courtiers didn't dare to come forward at this time. Of course, the other courtiers didn't dare to come forward at this time. He could only watch as the prince swaggered off. When they turned to look at Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, they found that these two princes had also left. Things in the previous court were in such a mess, but the harem seemed to be calm. The empress's funny palace just seemed to be closed. A group of S was ordered not to disturb the empress dowager and the empress, saying that these two concubines were both sick. Both of them were sick in the palace. For a while, no one dared to make more trouble. The atmosphere of the entire inner palace was inexplicably tense. Everyone felt that this time the empress might really lose power. After being deposed, Prince Zhou would not be the legitimate son of the empress, but the same status as the other princes. Everyone had the same status, and Prince Yu was the eldest son. No matter from which aspect, Prince Yu was the most likely to inherit the throne. Many us didn't go to the empress to pay their respects, but unconsciously turned to concubineda. At this time, it would be very beneficial for them to curry favor with concubineda. It was better to curry favor with concubineda before she became the empress. Otherwise, when concubineda became the empress or the future empress dowager in the future, they would have nothing to do with it. The palace where concubineda was located immediately became very lively. At this time, Chu Luchun secretly met concubine Lan in the attic where he used to rest. This place was close to Prince Chen's mansion and not far from the back door of Prince Chen's mansion. When Chu Luchun came over, concubine Lan was already waiting for him upstairs. Seeing him coming, concubine Lan looked at him excitedly, and tears immediately fell from her beautiful face. Chu Luchun stood far away and looked at concubine Lan coldly without saying a word. You sit down first and talk. Concubine Lan looked him up and down a few times and found that he was really in good health. He didn't seem to be struggling, so she breathed a sigh of relief and pointed to the chair beside her. Chu Luchun glanced at her indifferently and walked over slowly. He first pulled the chair aside and then sat down. His eyes were cold, and he looked at concubine Lan as if he was looking at a stranger. There was no warmth on his handsome face. Can't you? Concubine Lan's eyes were a little begging. Chu Luchun said without hesitation. You still blame me, don't you? Blame me all the time. But what can I do? I can't do anything. Concubine Lan suddenly became excited and said with tears in her eyes, You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.